funds to fund 2018 salary adjustments.
Second.
Moved and seconded by Leslie.
Okay,
Director
and
McRoberts?
two things I just want to say about this as far as explanation. We've been through a detailed explanation as to how the funds will be spent. We've saved some things in some areas, over anticipated expenditures, but we've also had some increases, as many of you know. Wages have increased significantly for Washington workers, and we also have some of our staff who are well under the average or median range for salaries. So we're trying to make some adjustments to keep them, because stability is really important in our organization. And the otherwise unspent funds, we talked about this last meeting, but for those of you who are not aware of it, we brought in over $100,000 more in income last year in 2017 than was budgeted for. And the reason was because primarily, or the biggest reason was because we brought in 97% collections rate, and we budgeted only 93%. So we've done a remarkable job, and every percent over budget is an additional $17,000 to, but we did not spend it. Just because we bring it in doesn't mean we can spend it. We still have to stay within our spending plan. So it is available to us. And we're requesting $6,610 of that to be spent for the benefit of the salary adjustments that need to be made.
Okay, so the maker of the motion has had the first cut. Is there any need to discuss the motion? Hearing none, then all in favor of the motion indicate. That looks unanimous. I'll just ask, all opposed? None. That was unanimous. So there is not a written document for me to sign. Once a written document is either brought over here or produced, then I will sign it.
Quick question, are these going to be on?
I presume the microphones will be turned on as soon as we possibly can.
I think they are on.
Well, hello?
They're not coming out of the speakers.
Are we still having problems hearing the audience?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're not on.
Can you
Basically,
turn up
they're
the
not on.
volume, please? The master volume.
They're dead.
Not getting it. Okay.
All right, so we will try and adjust the microphones
Project.
as quickly as we can. Okay, the agenda was adopted. There's really no change other than item 8 on the agenda was removed. We had our closed session. We went in and back and open it, and we voted. So now we're at announcements. Are there any announcements to be made? Seeing no announcements, then we'll move on to property owner comments and board comments. Again, we don't have the microphone assisting, so speak loudly, and the normal process is your name and where you live, either street address or division and lot number, either one. So we're open for property owner comments.
Sharon?
Yeah, I think that somebody's approaching the podium.
I'm reading this for Cameron Stewart on Sudden Valley Drive. He has laryngitis. His questions, what happened to the Long Range Planning Committee? If it has been disbanded, why? How do you plan working through the needs of the reserve study for future projects or plans to fund such projects? Is that good? Okay.
Good question, and it's a very simple answer. We simply haven't had a meeting yet. Okay. We will. Okay. Any further?
Well, I just was going to say regarding the reserve study, is that part of the long-range planning, or?
The reserve study itself is
Separate.
not part of the long-range planning
why I was
committee,
gonna
but
answer that.
in terms of the process of what the planning committee looks at, they'll be looking at the exact same issues that are in the reserve study.
Well,
How do
we will be dealing with the reserve study this year and looking at the items that are on it. We have way more items on it than we possibly have funding for, but the procedure for that is to go to the managers who are responsible for the various pieces of equipment or facilities, and they each determine of those that they're responsible for which are the most critical. And then the finance team gets together and helps them decide which can we buy, pay for, do whatever is necessary given the funds that we have. So there's a very detailed 2 or 3 month long process that we go through, working with the individual managers and the finance team to make recommendations to the board.
And I would presume that that also then is part of coming up with a revised spending plan
Yes, for SURF, we will.
for SURF projects. So there will be a revised spending plan to reflect the realities of the funds that we have with the dues that have been approved. Okay, are there any other homeowner comments?
Sure.
Please go ahead and, whoever, I don't know. You're next then.
I'm Whitney Pierce. I live at 6 Parr Lane. I'm going to read something as well that was written by a group of us that live here in Sun Valley. We, a group of homeowners in the Sun Valley Community Association, have concerns over the future of our recreation corridor and parks. It is both unfortunate and understandable that we do not have the budget or means to ensure that they are available to use this summer, as when we had our last AGM, we did so not knowing the YMCA would be leaving. We've been left with no budget and no plan. In response, a community recreation task force was formed to work towards a proposal to preserve the amenities that would no longer be under YMCA management. Community input and planning is crucial, and it is our understanding that they have worked diligently to get a plan in place as quickly as possible to keep the gym open on a membership basis and then begin to focus on the pools and other resources. It's a prudent approach, and we agree that it should move forward with the support of the association pending feasibility. Our concern, however, lies in the timing. The pools do not feel urgent as summer is still several months away. But the simple truth is that there will need to be a strategy and ample funds in advance of the pool's opening, and to gather community support and the necessary resources will take time. We may already be behind in our planning. Based on a preliminary review of Sun Valley Community Association records, as well as those of the YMCA's operations, it appears that there is a very real possibility that for less than $10 a month, we as a community could not only ensure that our pools and gym remain open, we could do it without the need for additional use fees, collect additional revenue through non-member use fees, and most importantly, regain ownership and the first right of refusal to use them in doing so. This isn't just about gyms and pools, though. We are also concerned about the parks. Last November, a measure was put forth to fund our parks, which unfortunately did not pass. That measure to fund our parks would not have only improved their maintenance, it would have allowed for care beyond what they've seen for many years and include repairs to playgrounds and upgrades. What we see now in regard to our parks care and maintenance has been the result of taking funds from operations in UDR, as well as through the time and generosity of our neighbors. If we as a community were to come together to support these amenities, parks, trails, both pools and the gym, it wouldn't just be about keeping them open for those who currently use them. This is just a glimpse of what we believe would happen. Members who previously could not or would not pay the much higher additional use fees would rejoin the use of pools and gym. The funding of parks would allow funds to go back to operations, so not only would parks improve, those projects we were taking funding away from would improve as well. Funding the operations of the rec center would mean that the barn utilities, janitorial, and maintenance are in place, which then allows members to return to the space for community building activities such as teaching classes, holding club meetings, or even private parties. By having the space available for member use, we begin better supporting our own. Those of us and our neighbors who have small businesses or skills to offer would be given the opportunity to use the space to flourish. Our neighbors would be able to provide opportunities through space use and bring more options and diversity to the valley. Our pride and cohesiveness as a community grows as we reinvest in our resources and ourselves, leading to future opportunities. As you can see at first glance, it's a measure to keep the pool and gym open, and admittedly, that is where this began. Once we started to explore the possibilities, both as far as what it might cost and what it could become, we uncovered an opportunity for very small community shared reinvestment in our resources to become a rejuvenation of what it means to live in the valley. As was previously mentioned, it looks like this could be accomplished for around $10 a month. We're still firming up the numbers. If it turns out that the cost would be more than what we believe is fair and equitable to our members, we will not pursue the idea further. However, if the numbers are as close as what we think they will be, we intend to start a petition for an SGM to put forth 2 measures. One 5-year special assessment to fund and operate the rec center, including the main pool, adult pool, and gym with no additional member use fees, and a second 5-year special assessment almost identical to the previously one put forth, the parks measure, with the difference being that the adult pool funding will be moved to measure 1. Much time, energy, and planning has gone into this idea, and our 2-minute comment period limits what we can present in this moment. We are excited about the possibilities, and we'll be in touch as we flesh out this idea in the coming week. For now, we'd like to say that we believe in the possibilities, and we are Sudden Valley strong. And strong, we're saying saving the recreational opportunities and green spaces. And Karen Borchert, Summer Cronk, Robin Dieter, Brian Halsey, John Lucarelli, and myself, Whitney Pierce, have signed the letter.
Thank you very much. Are there any further homeowner comments?
Chris Weitzel, Happy New Year to everybody. Couple things. One, I support the amenities in Sudden Valley. So if there's a way to keep things here instead of losing them for whatever reason, financial or whatever, I'll be supporting that. I'm hoping that somewhere down the road, we get our roads taken care of. But for the time being, with the effort that certain people are putting into this, if that's what we've got, let's take it, let's vote for it, let's get it through. I also just want to let you know, for the YMCA and their departing, we are having an appreciation appetizer thing at El Agave. I think it's on the 27th of January. Everybody's welcome. I think that most of the people that work there were members of this community, and I would like to see us show them their support, even though they're leaving. I just think it's sad that they're leaving. I'm very grateful of all the contributions for my clothing drive this year. It's going to help a lot of people, and I'm really happy for that. And I think that the last thing I'm going to say is going to, and this goes to Mitch, and I didn't have a chance to talk to him, but we've got a auction coming up for Sudden Valley lots. I think the best way to get that auction, the word out, is to get it into the MLS. I'm not suggesting that I be involved. I'm suggesting that Greg Paul at RE/MAX be involved. I suggest you list one property under the remarks. You describe what you're doing, okay? I think you want salesmen to sell things. That's what they do. There's over 20,000 realtors in the Washington State Association that would be immediately notified of this thing. It's the only way we can get the word to all those people is through the MLS system. I don't have access to those emails. No one does. We can't do it any other way. So if there's any possibility of Mitch, you and I talking, or you go talk to Greg, whatever, or interview realtors and ask them how many lots they've sold, do whatever you got to do. But if you want this to raise the prices, I think that it's imperative that we get beyond the sudden, or the Whatcom County purchase base. We have to get it into the base of Seattle and beyond, where they're willing to pay fair market value for buildable lots. So I think that it'll be interesting to see how it turns out. It definitely will help. It cannot hurt.
Thank you for your professional advice. That's very much appreciated.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Okay.
very much appreciated.
All
Thank
right.
you.
You bet. Thank you.
Are there any further homeowner comments? Oh,
Sure.
Oh, sorry.
that's all right. She's not standing up.
I thought you smiled at me. Summer Cronk, 56 Grandview Lane, and I wanted to follow up as obviously my name was one of the names on the letter that Whitney presented. And as was stated in our letter, 2 minutes is a short period of time, and there is so much more to what we have been talking about and have hopes for. And, you know, for me, the idea behind this is with enough community support to garner a special assessment for a very minimal amount, the amount of benefit that that would reap, it just, every time I think about it, I come up with something new that would benefit this community. And it started with, oh my gosh, keep the pools in the gym open. Well, now you've got power and everything in the building. Great, we've got space available. Members can come back in. Things that the YMCA has provided a great service, and there was definite benefit to it. And I think the thing that we lost in all of that was the ownership. We no longer had the first right of refusal to this space. That was hard for a lot of people. It was hard for me wanting to swim, pool's not available during those hours, wanting to use, I know we had a martial arts teacher and he ended up no longer teaching, conflict of interest, all of those things. So, you know, there's so much that could come of this, and what it all leads to is not only a reinvestment financially, it's a community reinvestment. And if we get things back to where we have that ownership, we have that right to use those amenities the way that we see fit, we're all going to feel better about it. And when we all feel better about it, it continues and it blossoms, and more things will begin to come from it. And just back to the idea of having that space, the ability to support, like had been said in the letter, small businesses, people teaching classes. I mean, this is an investment so much more beyond a physical structure or one thing. And I'm super excited about it, and we're excited to share more with you in the next week or so, and hope that you find as much value in it as we do. And I like the light.
Thank you very much. Go ahead and move the microphone close to you. I believe they're actually working now.
Can you hear me? Good. I'm Sharon Wash. Sharon Wash Amon. I live at 25 Windward Drive, and I want to agree with everything everybody else said, first of all, and I share Summer's excitement, but maybe for a little bit different reason. I'm excited that one of the positives that came from the election is that, well, just look, there are so many people who want to be involved in our community that it hasn't always been that way. And the committees are filling up with so many people who want to give ideas, think outside the box, think of things that we can do to move forward. And as an example, the Communications Committee now has, like 13 to 15 people signed up on it. And the chairman, who happens to be Mr. Board Member Trower, says the more the merrier. We have so many people that we have now made subcommittees so that everyone can work on things that will help the community become more a voice to get all of the information out. And a lot of the committees are working together and finding a lot of overlap. Okay, so all that I think is a really good thing. Now, there's also, what I want to say is that I don't understand why, if somebody does want to be a member of a committee, there's not always the opportunity presented to them to be. And I do understand that some committees need a lot of people and some don't need as many. And I understand that I might not be welcome on any committee I just want to drive up to, but I would hope that never would it be a politically motivated reason for turning away somebody. And what I would hope is that my own vision is that historically, Sudden Valley has had division, And, I mean, right, we do. We're not all of the same opinions, but that's a good thing. I know 2 board members who actually say they don't agree about anything, and I'm talking about older board members, not newer ones, but that doesn't mean they don't want to and can work together. So here's my hope, is that there are people who believe one way and people who believe another way, but they can all join the same committee. The more the merrier, we can find jobs for them. And that's how people get to know each other, and we're not blind people saying things on social media. And I confess I got a little testy every now and then, but I was denied to become a moderator on Nextdoor because 2 people said, and I could actually quote what Roy said to me, these 2 people don't think that you could be fair because they seem to think you're aligned with the current board. And I don't ever think anyone should be denied to be on a committee because they supported board members or didn't support board members. And that's why I hope that it will all be taken to heart. And if people got together, for instance, I met somebody tonight that I really wanted to meet and got to shake hands with him. And I don't think I could ever go on social media and say anything, because when I get to meet somebody, or when they get to meet me, they might understand that we're not enemies. We're all neighbors trying to make Sudden Valley work. I think I talked longer than 3 minutes, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just turned it up all the way. I just turned it up all the way.
Hold it up to your microphone.
Karen Borcher, 102 Sudden Valley Drive. I don't even know if we'll get my 2 minutes here with Boss Baby, but my name was also on the letter of the Sudden Valley Strong Group, and I just wanted to put in a couple of comments about that. I'm also very excited about the prospect of being able to bring this forward with as little dollars as I think it might turn out to be. But it's really not about, as Summer said, it's not really about the facilities even, it's really about the community and the opportunities for the community and giving the same opportunities to everyone. And that, when I think about that, just makes me feel very grateful to even have those abilities in this community that we do. I've spoken a lot about parks before too. And so I think this brings even more recreational opportunities to our community and to everyone in the community, which has not been for quite some time. The other thing that I think is really great about this opportunity, the way that we're hoping to present it, is that if we can take the focus all of the time that, board members, we have several board members on the rec task force, and the time that it would take to make sure that we're always have the funding through use fees or whatever for these facilities, if we kind of can set that aside and know we have guaranteed funding for parks and for the recreation facilities, I think it allows the board and admin and everybody here and staff to refocus on some of the other very important and pressing needs. And that is, I don't know if that's the most exciting or the second most exciting to me, but I think that's a very important piece of it, is to be able to refocus on some of these very pressing matters that I know you guys are focused on, but if we could take a portion of it away and know that we have guaranteed funding, I think we could see a lot of progress. I think Summer used the word in one conversation we had of a ripple effect, and I think we would definitely see this if we can get this these measures passed. And thank you very much. My boss, I think, needs me.
Thank you. Are there any other homeowner comments?
Myra Kamada, 31 Longshore Lane. I just want an update on what's going to happen to the gym. Has any progress been made? And is there going to be no service for some period of time over there?
We will be discussing that issue later tonight, and we'll see where the state of play is.
So
I invite you.
I just have to wait.
I invite you to listen to the discussion, and if you would like to respond to the discussion, there will be property owner comments again at the close of the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Sir, I might point out that the next topic is the Rec Force Task Force report. So that after public comment, it's on there, so people would know that.
Are there any other public comments? Yes, sir.
I didn't think I was going to say anything.
Well, give us your name
I
and
rarely ever do.
give us your name and location.
Ray Kamada, 31 Longshore Lane, Gate 1. Is there anybody here who couldn't afford to lose a few pounds? There should be more support for the gym. Does everybody know that if they're on Medicare Advantage, that Advantage program will pay for their gym fees? Who doesn't know that? I'll bet there are people who didn't know that. There needs to be a better marketing effort for the gym. The gym is always underused. And I don't know why that is, other than people are innately lazy. I am. You know, I was gone from the gym for 6 years, but I supported it. I was one of the first members, even though I was opposed to its creation in terms of the way it was handled. So I think when this discussion comes up, we need to think about creative ways to get the gym going and self-supporting. That's it.
Thank you.
I just have a question.
Go ahead up, you know, formality rules. Who the heck are you?
Pardon?
Who the heck are you?
I don't know sometimes. Fred Haslam, 2394. Actually, I have a request, and that is after the discussion concerning Linda's committee's work, whether or not we could have public comments that address that topic rather than sitting through the whole meeting and waiting until the very end. So
We will take
something
that,
might
we
be
will
able to-
take that, and I will make that as a proposal to the board. We'll see what the board does. Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay, seeing none, then we'll go,
Two board comments?
if there are any board comments.
I did have one explanation, and it has to do with that red light that's sitting over there. For those of you who don't know what's going on, that's a timer, right? And what's it set for?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay, so it goes on green, and when does it go to yellow?
About 30, 40 seconds before time's
Before the
up.
end, and then it turns red, and that means time is up.
Correct.
Thank you.
And we've turned the volume up, so you'll hear it beep too.
Right.
Okay. Any other board comments? Then let's move directly into the rec task force. We have,
The mics are still.
You're there.
okay, so, this is handed over to the two directors who are on that task force. That's Vanessa and Linda.
I'm just, before we start this, I think it would be.
Could that, excuse me, could that be turned up a bit? I have a hard time hearing
Oh, sorry.
what's going on.
Does mine, can you hear me?
I,
Oh,
now I can. Thank you, appreciate it.
Mr. President, since the last commenter asked if we could open up comments again after it, do we want to consider adding that at the end of this as a possible discussion item?
We can certainly consider that now, or we can
I'm just
consider it
saying,
later.
add it to, as number 4,
Yeah, I
to
understand.
the rec discussion.
We can, you've made that, you've made that as a motion.
I second it.
Okay.
Moved and seconded that we have a public comment period as Roman numeral 4 under A in continuing business. So, is there any need for discussion? Okay, why don't we just say that has been adopted by acclamation, and we'll just have public comment until there's no more public comment. And thanks, Fred, for the suggestion. It's a good one.
Thank you.
Okay, now Madam Directors,
That's,
tap it again loud and see what's going on.
Move it really close.
And
Is it on? Working? There it goes.
I can't hear.
She hasn't said anything.
Oh, okay.
Of importance. So the first thing on the agenda is the charter. It was provided to you. I don't know if we need to have a discussion.
right, the charter was in our board packet. It was listed as page 2. That's the proposed charter, correct?
Correct. Do
Would
I
you
have
like to
to?
discuss it? Explain it, or anything else?
I don't have anything to discuss. If there's questions on it, we can.
Okay, then why don't we, before we have any board discussion, we need a motion to adopt that as the charter of the task force, and we'll discuss it. So a motion needs to be made and a second.
Okay, my motion to approve the task force charter as written.
I second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, now, let's have a discussion. Is the scope of this appropriate? Does anybody have any concerns or questions? I see one hand and two. So Carol first.
I think this looks good. My only concern is that, I really liked what Odell said at the last board meeting about this just replacing the WISE services, because it's all-encompassing. This seems to divide it up a lot, and I feel like it's confining, but I can live with it. The only thing is in the third paragraph, the last sentence is not a sentence, and I'm not quite sure what it refers to. So is that an additional part of the purpose, or, in other words, it's just a phrase? So, but I really would like to have seen this more just very simple, in that we're trying to replace the services that are left available now with the Y departing, because that's pretty much where we're headed, in my mind.
Could the volume be turned up a little?
Maybe I should just talk closer. That's my fault, David. Sorry.
Okay, Eric.
I seem to remember the original motion of forming the task force, specifically excluding the adult pool from their investigation. Am I misremembering that?
Yeah, that was lumped in with the pool, or the.
So.
Yes, right.
So you're referring to the pools where it says health
Yes,
club, pools,
plural
and rec
pools,
center. So you
yes.
wanted to just say pool, or? Is that what you're asking, just to remove the S from pools?
The adult pool was
Okay.
intended to remain with the parks.
All right, so formally, we're having a motion made to amend this by changing the word pools on line 3 to two-word, just the main pool.
Thank you.
Health club, main pool, and rec center. Is that correct?
And in subsequent.
Okay, and as
Occurrences, yes.
and as necessary throughout. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there a need for discussion? Okay, then why don't we just say that motion is approved by acclamation, and then you'll make whatever necessary changes need to be made. Okay, who is next? Leslie?
Yeah, the motion to create the task force, there was a little bit of discussion about exactly what should be in that motion, and I don't think it was ever very clear. And there was some consideration of whether we should just look at Sudden Valley taking over the rec corridor, or if we should actively go out and find someone else to manage this area. Has the task force looked at that at all?
As far as anyone outside, if we had 90 days or longer, you might consider that. I think the whole gist of creating the task force was to see how well we could operate to have the health club open this year and still available to the members. Certainly, if It depends upon the actions that the board takes, but I would think that if in 2019, the board would rather look at someone and take the time to put out an RFQ, you have to develop something. And right now, we're in the time, as Larry said, when we talked at our last meeting, time is of the essence. And we don't have that time, therefore, no, we did not look at that.
Okay, I apologize, there was a question raised about that last sentence on paragraph 3 that just starts with "to determine." I would suggest just to put a semicolon after the word above and then make that a little T on 2. And then it just is just another clause after.
Oh, I see what you're
to
saying.
ensure focus.
Semicolon, I gotcha.
And, you know, and then you just say "to determine" or "and to determine."
And to determine. would be
Okay,
good.
all right, how
I'm
about that?
happy with the
A
and.
comma and the word "and," and then make that a little T.
Above
don't need a
and
motion
to
for that.
determine?
We don't need a motion for that, that's a Scrivener's error.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine, and nobody's objecting anyway, so we'll just do that. Okay. Are there any other comments? Okay, well, then nobody's making a comment. We've heard one comment that this is too wordy, too complex, that's the word. Other comments have been adopted in terms of phraseology. David, do you have a comment?
Well, just, no.
Call the question.
Well,
One quick one. The charter doesn't have, I guess, an end date to it. Being that it's a special committee, a task force is a special committee. It's established for a special purpose, which this obviously is, but it also has to, that purpose has to have an accomplishing, what is its actual accomplishment that it's charged with? At what point it would stand and be dissolved? Am I missing that?
I just personally would point to the very first bullet point under the task force's charge to develop and recommend funding and operational guidelines for those items, and then provide guidance and consultation for setting priorities. That just sounds like a longer term thing, but there is no specific date or time frame.
Right now, if you look at the first part, we set initially at our first meeting that we would work 6 weeks on just trying to get the health club, let's rock and roll here, and then move into the pools. Some of the information we have on the pools already. I just got a lovely email today from the YMCA with to be able to furnish lifeguards for an abbreviated season, that sort of thing. I haven't gone, and I need to talk with Mitch whether whether staff wants to get the bids for the maintenance of the pools, things like that are just, it takes time to fill them out, so we focus solely on the health club. If you want to if you would like us to come back with another timeline for the pools, rec services, how do we deal with that? We certainly can do that. It's just that we found that when you start getting into this and really looking hard at budgets, it takes up a lot of your time. Mitch can tell you that, you know, I've been sending information to them so that to the best of our abilities, we can provide you with the budget that we did that is really relatively complete.
Okay, does that answer your question, sir?
Almost.
Okay.
The last bullet in the charter.
Okay.
To ensure that SVCA do 1, 2, and 3 things. All of those things are continuing beyond, they're perpetual, it looks like. Regularly use the data, inform and continuously improve or enlarge the programs. Use the data to determine the effectiveness of SVCA and its recreational programs.
For me, how do I say this? I wish Vanessa would chime in here. I think the vision for us is that, and if you read our path forward, initially it's just to get the gym open. Right now, we can't advertise to the membership, hey, we have this program we'd like to do. You need to look at this. We're kind of stuck. I want to make sure that if we do open the gym, that, and you accept our budget, that we can look at that every month and say, are we passing or are we failing? It's possible for every revenue, so like marina or golf course, you can say, here's what we said we'd have, here's what we've spent, are we failing or are we staying on task with our budget? I think that's critical. All we want to do is cover our expenses this year, and if we can't do that, then we've failed. And it's just being able to keep track of that all the time, whether that just becomes Vanessa and I sitting and looking at financials, I don't know, but there should be a plan to see, can we be successful or are we again failing like we've done in the past?
Just a point of information, because this is a task force and therefore a special committee, it terminates automatically at the end of, at the AGM, essentially.
Yeah, that's
So
fine.
there is that built in.
I was just going to say, I think these are good goals. I'm not sure that's the task force's responsibility to ensure, and I think that's where I can see where what I would do is make that as part of the recommendation. That would be, as far as your recommendation from the task force is that this is ongoing, what SBCA will do, and the board will be responsible for oversight.
So put in the bullet, rather, ensure that SBCA just put their recommendations?
Well, I think you can take that last bullet and all of its premises out and just include that in your recommendation once you put together your recommendation to the board. I don't think it needs to be part of your charter, in other words.
Oh, it doesn't
Because
need
the
to be
task
part of the
force is
charter.
not going to be
Gotcha.
responsible for it.
Gotcha.
Okay, so that sounds like a motion to delete that
Yes.
last bullet and the 3 subheadings. I'm seeing nods all
Is that
around.
an amendment to the,
It's an amendment to the
Yes.
motion, and I'm
So
seeing nods
second.
all around, the second, and,
Oh, that whole bullet and everything in those 3 items below it?
yeah, they'll pull that out and they'll move it to another document. And
there's a
so,
motion by Director Holman, and who's the second?
Eric,
Okay.
so do we need to discuss? Okay. then
Mr.
why
President,
don't
I've
we
got
just-
something. I've got something real quick. We seem to be lost in a lot of the details. It's kind of the forest for the trees thing. I just want to remind everyone that the task force was established because we were under the gun. The YMCA was leaving. We needed to establish a think tank to come up with ideas to get the gym on its own, have it generating its own income. That was the focus of the task force, okay? What they've done here is tremendous, and it's great, and it's a lot of work. So we just need to remember that it's just about having the gym support itself. So thanks for that, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you. Back to the amendment, let's just say adopted by acclamation. All right? Okay, so then that's off. All right, anything else that we need to talk about?
Would you like us to send back a clean copy?
No, that's not necessary at all. Staff input.
Sir, I would not, as I've listened to you, Linda, you
Oh,
were
your
talking.
microphone?
Thank you, David. As you were talking, Linda, you were discussing budget authority, contracting. Committees do not have contracting authority. And so if you're going to engage in any contracting, talking to the YMCA, how much, how long, what can we do, which way would we go? I appreciate getting a budgetary number, but committees don't have budget authority. And then when it comes to cost tracking, that's not a committee assignment either. So now I'm concerned, going back to what Odell just said, this is a short-term tactical think tank issue. What are the possibilities and capabilities in the short term to operate the gym? And I thought that's the charter you were going to come up with, this plan. And I'm curious, if this seems to go back and forth between a short-term strategy this is what we have to do to succeed in the short term, and then there's a long-term strategy that we have to do. Is this committee charged with a long-term strategy, a short-term strategy, multiple strategies? Do you have, which way are you going? Because it's written to do all of it, and it's very unclear to me. And staff hasn't been involved in your budgeting or your costing or verification of your estimates, nor have we been asked to give you additional input on your budget plan that you put up today. And I think that it's important that we be able to also share with you some of the problems that we are aware that have conflicted the association and the YMCA that have caused some of the problems. In a good, for example, case in point, custodial support. Custodial support between the YMCA and the Christ the King Church and the rest of the facility occupants is a serious issue. It was in the contract before. There are 2 main locker rooms, 2 other large bathrooms, a bathroom up here, and a kitchen. And when we think about the amount of effort per day that it would take to be able to keep this building clean, and it has never been incorporated, and I look at what you've got here for your estimate, it looks like you've put an hour a day in for custodial support, and I don't think that's a reality marker. So we would like to work with you on that.
Okay, so with regard to staff input on the charter, the main point is that there doesn't seem to be a clear focus on the urgent issue, that it's a broad focus on both the urgent issue and the long-term issue. Is that part of it?
That's correct.
And then we'll talk about the budget document later.
Totally respect what they're doing, but it seems to not be clear on what's the goal, what's the we know what the driver is, YMCA is leaving. When do you have to deliver it, and what's the real priority here?
And remind us, they are leaving
February 1, they're gone.
I believe if you read the plan forward, some of that's explained. And also, staff has been very generous in helping me with numbers that I needed, particularly salaries and wages, which is the biggest driver of the costs there. There's B&O expenses, there's different things and I've sent you the questions and you generously replied to them, but you've helped me fill out. We have gone out and received some estimates for services to give us an idea.
Right.
If I have to subcontract, currently the YMCA maintains their own machines. When Sudden Valley had the health club before, it was always fitness gear that did this. I'm not saying anything bad, it's just they were there. They came out and did a free estimate for us, and it at least helps us plug a number. It's much like it was before, but I'm saying it helps us plug a number. As far as maintenance is concerned, and I think that is an ongoing conversation we're going to have, I would assume the number that we have in there is strictly for dealing with only the health club. Their bathrooms inside there, the shower rooms, that sort of thing. I would like to have a discussion with the Valley for the main room out there that I believe now is cleaned, and I'm not certain, is cleaned by the YMCA. At least I see their staff vacuuming and stuff out there.
It is in their contract.
Yeah, let's get.
Okay, but we can't, but I'm saying.
It's detailed.
It's detailed, that's it, but I'm saying that that's what we have allowed for within the health club confines. That's what this pricing is for that janitorial work, so that it's not there. I think there's a note in this path forward. If you would want to assume it, from what we talked about earlier, I assume that's not the case, but we hadn't had the conversation.
Okay, the conversation is kind of looping around.
Yeah, I know.
Right. Now, the procedural issue is we have a motion to adopt this charter. But the factual issue is, why are we spending time talking about a charter? We only just today got you know, what clearly you've spent a lot of time on, but the board hasn't had any time at all to take a look at your expenses, your proposed income, or the path forward plan. And I find it might be unhelpful to have a vote on a charter and spend time on that issue at all, when I'd rather spend time talking about and discussing what you've discovered in your numbers. I would suggest tabling the charter at least until the next board meeting. I mean, you know, in other words, a time certain, and getting right down to some of these issues that staff has raised, and taking a look at some of your numbers and how firm are they, and ask questions of you guys. In terms of the operation of the task force, a charter is, in my way of thinking, it's certainly not be all and end all, of very much lesser importance. We can get to that at some point. What we need is, because we were just told yesterday at our orientation that it is a formal committee, the only thing we really need to make sure right away is that, are there any members? Have they been vetted and approved? Okay, get that out of the way, because that's an absolute requirement. But you also have done some serious work, and I'd personally be interested in spending some time thinking about your serious work, as opposed to, I'm sorry, I'm a lawyer and I love paperwork, but this doesn't seem all that important. That's my comment.
Is that a motion to table?
Yeah, I just made a motion to table.
Okay.
Until the next board meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion of that motion to table? All right, then I will just ask all in support of the motion to table till the next meeting. Unanimous? Okay. Works for me. So now let's get to the meat. Which, and like I said, you made reference earlier to, if you read the path forward, but like I say, you only handed it out just prior to the meeting.
That's
So
because we had to have our task force look at the
That's
document.
fine. I'm not complaining. It's
Okay.
just, I haven't had a chance to look at any of this stuff. Neither has anyone else. And since the issue of cleanliness came up, and I know I have down through the years heard many a complaint about inadequate cleanliness in the gymnasium area. I haven't really heard so much about the bathrooms, but I've heard a lot about the gym area down through the years. When Sudden Valley operated the area on its own, I heard tons of complaints about the poor maintenance of the equipment. So I mean, those are two things I would love for you to address now. What are your numbers? What does it look like? And so draw my attention to where I'm supposed to find all of these things.
All right, if you're going to look at numbers for things, you need to look at the budget. There's very little in there currently for revenue. It's kind of where we're stuck at right now as a committee. We have a plan. I'd like Vanessa to talk about that.
Can I just summarize before we get started?
Works for me
Okay.
perfectly.
Yeah, you guys are in charge of telling us what you've come up with so far.
Before we jump into janitorial costs. So we've had 4 meetings. Initially, we looked at the pool and the health club. And then we decided that we would focus our time on the health club. As stated earlier, it was because, one, the health club will be vacant February 1st. And then the second reason, there is pool construction this summer, and so we weren't able to get a concrete time frame of when the pool would actually be open. So we did want to focus first on the health club. So what the board has in front of them are the health club expenses. This is looking at a 10-month period, and we've anticipated that the cost for the health club over that 10 months will be $93,000. This does include 4 part-time staff and then 1 part-time manager. One of our task force members, he has spent a lot of time looking at the number of people who attend the gym currently. He met with the YMCA a couple of times, and he verified that there are 240 gym memberships. We've had lengthy discussions about that 240 number and making sure it was accurate. When we discussed in the task force about how many people we would retain once the YMCA leaves, opinions are that about 90% of that 240 number, so 90% of 240 people would probably still come to the health club once the YMCA is closed. So that's 216 people that we're anticipating that we would have revenue from if we were to open the health club after the YMCA leaves. What our initial thought, because of timing, we would like to open the health club on March 1st. What we had hoped for tonight is that with the approval of the board, that we could start seeking enrollment forms from individuals just to gauge what kind of revenue we'd be anticipating. So if you take that $93,000 and you divide it over 216 people, it comes out to $43 a month. We've been playing with the 3 types of memberships that we'd likely offer. We've talked about one being a paid in full membership where there would be advantage for paying your membership all at once at the start of the year. We've also talked about the second option being a month-to-month membership where you would just pay on a monthly basis. You would also have an enrollment fee. And then we've also talked about a 1-year agreement, which would end at the end of 2018. And hopefully, if our budget allows, that the health club would remain open and those people would be able to continue on and sign a new agreement for 2019. And with that option, with a 1-year agreement, there was no enrollment fee. So that's kind of where we're at tonight. We do have concerns, I think, as Linda pointed out, that we did have somebody, Fitness Gear, come in and evaluate our equipment, and they did explain to us that there are a lot of things wrong and that the equipment has been poorly maintained, which would be a discussion that the board would need to have as far as the maintenance of our equipment being part of the YMCA contract, and if that would be something that our current members would need to pay for, or if that's something that we should look to the Y for. So again, our hope was that if the board were to look at our expenses and deem them reasonable, that we could continue to look for or open up enrollment, and next time we meet, kind of see what sort of revenue we're talking about to see if it would be enough to cover that $93,000. The thing with the enrollment forms is obviously they have to go somewhere, and I mean, we can have a discussion too about this, but as far as like, is it acceptable to collect the money now, or without a promise that the gym would be open, or just to see what types of memberships people would sign up for and not provide the money at this time. That is in the path forward. So that's just sort of the background of where we're at and what the task force has come to at this point. Each meeting of the task force, we've probably had about an average of 15 people. So there's been a lot of time spent. So I'd just really like to consider looking at the possibility of going ahead with pre-enrollment forms and just sort of gauging what sort of revenue we're talking about. We can jump into the
Could that be turned
costs
up?
if you want now.
Could that be turned up a bit, the volume? I'm having trouble hearing them.
Leslie?
Yes. Now, you had, you mentioned starting on March the 1st. These numbers that you have here, do they reflect an annual number or a 10-month number?
10-month.
10 months, okay. Question?
Is, in terms of a go, no-go, is there numbers that need to be delivered by a certain time? Or do we say this is going to fail? I mean, how does that work? If, 3 people sign up, it's one thing. If 1,000, whatever the case is, whatever those variables are, is there, maybe you mentioned it, I wasn't hearing everything, but is there a time frame when those numbers would be delivered to us and say, we have enough to move forward, or is this going to go forward regardless, whatever, those kind of things? Is there a drop dead point?
So our thought was that we'd provide an update of what revenue we'd have just in this next 2-week time frame, and just evaluate it again then.
In other words, by the next board meeting?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I don't know when that is.
I know.
Fourth Thursday.
14 days from today.
2 days,
I'd say
2
by the
weeks.
first, that's soon, that's too soon. But I'm not gonna argue.
Question.
Yep.
Director, there's, you got a lot of stuff in here. It's pretty good stuff. The 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. In several locations, 7th paragraph, I believe, you're talking about the passkey. That's capital equipment. So several of the things that you've got in here are capital improvements to the facility. So if we take it over, put the passkey in, I think that you're assuming that we would be letting people in there when there's no staff person there. That would probably require additional cameras and security cameras, which they don't have. I would ask you to suggest that you consider what capital changes we would need to make. You don't have any capital money in here, but you've got a lot of capital improvements required. And so we should probably talk about what kind of capital equipment you would really need to be able to pull this off.
If you look at there's a thing in there that says it is the intention to operate the health club maintaining the same hours and staffing patterns as currently in place. We had looked at a passkey operation, but there are other considerations to operate this way that were of concern to us, namely the security of other sections of the community center and dance barn should the health club open early with no one in the building and closing in the evening with no staffing in place. We looked at that. It's not like the small fitness center that we used to have. You're talking in a building that if somebody gets in the door down there, I don't know if we have a way to lock off the barn up here or
We do
protect
not.
any of the artwork that's down there, protect the cafe. And, I know a lot of people went, just open it in February, make it passkey, and it's, I've heard.
You looked at that issue and you found that there were too many problems.
It makes me nervous. If we had a door that only went into the gym and you could lock the gym so that people didn't have access to the rest of the building, but the way it's configured now, I really don't see that that's a wise choice. I really don't.
There is a door that goes to the gym from the outside. It's in the back of the building.
I'll have to look into that.
But those doors do exist. I mean, we could work together on that, look at different options. But again, they would probably also involve capital equipment. But it's trade-offs, right? But quick and dirty estimates with some skilled people, we can give you some numbers.
So can staff, let me just break in and ask, can staff work with these folks and provide them with some envelope numbers to
Hell yes.
to flesh some of this budget out?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, there's a lot, but I didn't include capital because it's an operations budget, you know?
But to achieve what you've got here?
Yeah.
You got capital modifications. Now, not to say it can't be done, there's ways to do it, and operating can be used for capital. Capital can't be used for operating. You know that.
Yep, I know.
So
That-
there's some strategies that are involved. I think that you've got a lot of good stuff here, but I think that there's some significant changes required to be able to pull it off. But it's doable. I mean, I can see where you're trying to go.
Do you think that this can be accomplished by the next board meeting so that the board will have something, I mean, in terms of getting a more fully fleshed out actual budget, both operations and capital investments that are needed and that sort of thing? Or what time frame do you think is possible from your perspective? And I don't even know what time frame you think from your perspective. So first,
to achieve what, sir?
To achieve a more fully fleshed out, complete budget with both operation and whatever necessary capital.
That's driven really by their business plan. And they put together a plan saying this is what they'd like to accomplish, this is the goal, this is the strategy, this is how they'd like to, what they want to do, and we can estimate against that. Right now, it's a list of different ideas, a lot of really good ideas, but it's not a cohesive plan. So no, I don't think that that's possible. That goes back to my comment earlier, all right? You're dancing back and forth between a strategic plan and a tactical plan. Focus on a tactical plan and we can help you on it. Right now, this is a list of both. So depending on what the committee wants to do, if the committee wants to hammer down a tactical plan to achieve a short-term goal, then I think we can work something out.
Having heard that.
If the plan is to operate as it currently is, I don't know that there's a lot of necessary changes that you're talking about. That's what I don't understand. I'm saying, we looked at passkey, and we don't see that as a viable option, and I guess I'm asking you then, what capital improvements, if we plan on keeping the status quo, that it would take? That's what I'm saying.
Well,
yes, there are job responsibilities of staff and stuff.
As I understood staff's comment, it's that the difficulties that you saw with the passkey might be worked around. But staff needs to know what difficulties you saw and has to be able to give you input as to what solutions they see for some of those difficulties.
That would change, it would change the budget radically, and then you'd spend another month waiting for the gym to open, I would say. You need time to do this pre-enrollment to know, are you going to have the funds to do it? And a month is a really short period of time.
So you're saying, regardless of when you do a budget, you first are recommending that you need to go and find out what is the potential customer pool, user pool.
Right now, with the budget that I have, it's to operate the pool as we're operating it now.
The gym. Yeah.
The gym, I'm sorry. So that's what it is. That's what I'm proposing to the people that are using the gym. The number that Vanessa gave you is a mean of all of the different rates and that sort of thing. When we sit down and try to figure them out, we say if we're not even going to be allowed to do pre-enrollment, then why sit here and beat your head on a table to try and come to a consensus of what we need? And that's why I'm saying right now we've gotten to that point of where we're dead in the water. We can't advertise to the membership or move forward unless you have that. If Mitch wants to look at our budget, some of them, he can look at some of the estimates we've gotten, which we feel are reasonable for like janitorial work within the confines of the health club, and also with maintaining our equipment. And I think those are the only two things that are even considered subcontracted work. And I would just ask that if it goes out to bid through staff, that they stay within those confines if possible. And they should be able to. If it changes, then you're in this whole the new thing of staff takes it over. But right now, in theory, staff isn't doing that.
Yes, because
Yeah.
that's what you guys are.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying. Normally, budgets are done by administration.
All right, I saw Carol's hand go up.
Here's one of the things I'm concerned with. Because of the shortness of time that we have in order to be able to get this done, I think looking at too many options is going to slow us down. And I do think that you have a captive audience right now. If you can attack them, I don't want to say that in a nasty way, but if you can let them know there is a solution, the chances are that you might be able to capture them for continued membership. You wait another 30 to 60 days, they're going to go find memberships elsewhere, and it's going to be harder to bring them back.
I still need an enrollment commitment from.
No, I hear what you're saying, and so I guess what I'm suggesting is the task force, and my feeling is the task force should go forward trying to duplicate what we have now, since you have costs. Work with staff to see if they're adequate costs, if the $43 would cover it, and come back to us at the next meeting and say, we're good, this is what we think it's going to be, this is what we recommend. Now, if you want to go looking at passcode and all that, we could do that at a future time. This is for only 10 months anyway. And I'm just concerned that we're going to lose our membership to other gyms and it's going to be harder to get them back. Because they'll make commitments, some of them for another year or something, and they may not come. And then you can also pursue Solar Sneakers and all those other things once you have a plan. But you need one plan and just go forward with it, work with staff to get it vetted to make sure the costs are all correct, and then present that. That's my recommendation. That's my point of view.
Understanding of what you're asking, tell me if I'm wrong, is that you would like the board to give you the authority to go out and ask people to pre-enroll. Okay, and what I've heard from Carol's comment is that might need a little bit more refinement in the numbers, but you should do that. You should go ahead and get some pre-enrollment activity. And so I will come, I'm going to come back around to, before we go out and ask people to pre-enroll, we have to have some, at least rudimentary, understanding of total costs.
I'm hesitant to accept a bargain, a dollar, a penny from anybody until we have an accounting structure that's set up that we're going to understand. We're taking people's money in and giving people their money. We need a little work on that before we start going to the community and saying, would you give us your money, please?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And my understanding of Vanessa's comment is that the task force hadn't yet made a decision about whether this pre-enrollment needed funds. And I think your comment is a very valid one, that it might not be a good idea to have.
Commitment letters?
Yeah, commitment letters. To just get numbers. I don't see any real problem with that. Eric?
I think that if I am going to be approached and asked to give a commitment letter myself, I would want to know what the basics of the deal would be that I'm committing to, even tentatively. I'd want to know how much per month, for example, a membership would be. Or a ballpark, something close, because I know we're in the preliminaries of trying to figure out what the response is going to be. We know what the services broadly that are offered here, but you're talking in your path forward about different types of trainers coming in, and it's a.
That's later on.
Okay. So I think that having a rough estimate of how much per month, I don't know if you have that yet. You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that based on the costs in the budget?
Yeah, $43 per person.
Okay.
But what we've looked at is, with the paid in full, we're still playing with the numbers, and it'll depend on how many, what percentage of that 216 number, but, paid in full would obviously be less than if you were to pay month to month or if you were to do the 1-year agreement. So we were discussing, if you paid in full for the whole year, $250. If you're paying month to month, it'd be around $40 with $25 enrollment, and then a 1-year agreement, maybe $30 a month, but no enrollment fee. So, but we're still revising those, and it'll depend on what percentage.
Right.
So.
Okay.
But we
if
know
you
what
took
our
that-
mean, we know what the mean is. That's
Yeah.
why we, that's why the committee went, why do we sit here and bang heads on the table and have a discussion if no one's even going to let me pre-enroll, even though we've worked at putting a budget together? And I understand Mitch's concern. I think most of the numbers are relatively hard numbers.
So, and I don't know if staff has had a chance to look at the numbers that you've projected here yet to see.
No, Mitch would have to look at those. We
Okay.
just finalized
So-
the budget and looked with the task force at these numbers last night because they deserve the ability to be
Okay.
able to look at this and discuss
So
it.
I think that that's something that we need to get quick.
I would think so. Linda's very competent. I think that we could sit down together, staff with Linda, and we would show her our areas of concern. She could express to her, to us, what her thought process was. We could work out some details on that. We've worked together on numbers long enough on both sides of the table. I'm sure that we would be able to broker that out.
And just to throw my own comment in, once you guys, as a task force, with staff's input, are comfortable that it is 43 or 40 or whatever, then I'm comfortable in you going out saying, would you be interested in committing to this at that rate? And I would be looking for this kind of information really soon. And there's some other folks that are looking to make comments. I think you had your hand up, and also Rich.
Am I assuming that with this numbers 40, whatever it is, that this would be a self-sustaining, that it's not something that the rest of the community would have to support, subsidize?
Right, so we took the cost of 93,000 and divided that over the 216 members that we are anticipating. So our goal was to break even.
Okay, and that would take care of all the things that Mitch was talking about and whatever the custodians and et cetera, et cetera.
Right, those are included in the budget, but I think what I'm hearing is that the general manager and Linda will meet and make sure that, what we've placed in for janitorial, because there is a misunderstanding of what janitorial services covered in what sections of the dance barn, they will flush those numbers out.
Thank you.
Who's next? Yeah, Rich.
Do we have the availability to have the list of the members that are with the Y at the present time? And if so, while Linda and Mitch work on the numbers, why can't you do a straw poll? You don't have to ask them to commit. You just have to, if you do a straw poll, you may lose a couple of people, but if you get a straw poll while they're finalizing the numbers, then you have a real idea of how much per month it's going to be, because I don't know what the basis of 216 is other than an extrapolation of a percentage, as opposed to doing a straw poll to say, does that gentleman there, is he going to be willing to join the club? As opposed to driving to town every day or every other day, like some of the people out here do. And I just spend a lot of time driving back and forth to town, and after a while it gets a little expensive. So, I don't see why those two things can't be done simultaneously.
That's an excellent suggestion,
you have
and I'll turn that as a question back to you guys, because my recollection of your summary of your process indicated that you had some indication of how many people were using it now, and you had already had some contact with those users. So would it be possible to do as he suggested?
We haven't had contact with those users. It's just information we pulled from the YMCA. I do like the general manager's suggestion of using those commitment letters while we're figuring out or finalizing the numbers. So I would like us to go ahead and do that, do the commitment letters, and then when we do meet at the next board meeting, we can get an idea of what the revenue stream would be.
Sir?
And then me.
Director Dales, did you guys ask the YMCA for the list?
We didn't ask for names. We just asked for the gym memberships.
You might.
I was one of the Jack McBride, who's on our task force, went in and spoke with them. They gave us numbers, but as a task force, I don't know if it is proper for us to ask for that kind of information from them. I think you and I spoke about, do you know if we can get a list? And I almost feel like that's outside something we should be asking from another entity, because the relationship is between Sudden Valley and the YMCA.
So let's try this. I can ask their CEO, would you be so kind as to give us a list of the members out at Sudden Valley? That's one. And secondly,
That's using your pre-existing relationship
we have a
with them.
relationship. It's a good relationship. Secondly, we could do an e-blast, and we could also do something on the web. This is an official Sudden Valley action, and we could say that we're looking for a poll. I mean, it's a very timely item. I think that Communications Committee should weigh in and help put this together, and use our communication tools to pulse the community and ask them, let's go do let's not do a percentage guess. Let's go see if we can do a hard poll.
Okay, so we've got two more hands. I'm leaving it to you to figure out what order.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Who's first? Leslie?
Okay. Yeah, and interesting, Brian Krulak is on your task force?
No.
No? Oh, okay. But what Brian Krulak has been doing as far as marketing for golf has been very effective. I think he's got some good ideas, and I think it might be worthwhile to go and talk to him. He's bringing in a lot of new members. He's getting hooked up to new community members and going out and seriously, you know, trying to bring in new golf members, to the point where he has brought down the amount that we've been losing. It was projected to be, as we found out yesterday, $88,000. Turned out to be 22. So whatever he's doing is effective, and I think that you might be able to use the same tools to bring membership in for the gym.
Yeah, I noticed you have a 0 on the recruitment. I'm not sure exactly whether that was membership recruitment or not.
I think, no, that's not, I think that's just recruitment of staff, that sort of thing. And it's something that was empty before. The thing that's been the struggle for us is Brian has a really good advertising budget. I can't put $3,000 in my advertising budget.
No, you don't have, but just to go to talk to the new member group.
We have lots of really good ideas in the group, but once again, we have to know if the gym's going to be open. I can't offer an open house. I can't do certain things like that until you know the gym's going to be open and you're going to be able to have people come in there and have staff.
It sounds to me like, I'm sorry, I'm doing it again.
David.
David.
Are we going to be going outside, like the YMCA brought people in from outside, or is this strictly for Sudden Valley members?
I think probably initially, I know we have some we currently have some non-members that I think we would retain that come from Glen Haven, that sort of area. But once again, I don't have a list, but I know we do have some non-members to the gym.
Received calls from Glen Haven people today saying that
What's going to happen with the gym?
they called today, and I got other calls this week. So they're concerned. I took that opportunity to sign them up on an e-blast, but, well, never miss an opportunity. We have the list, if you know, I mean, we've turned over 20% in new owners in the last 2 years. We have the list of all the new owners. Brian has a powerful marketing campaign. I think we should be tapping Brian into going forward and saying, what do you want to do? And as for whether or not it's going to be open, Linda, you have to take the assumption it's going to be open and pursue from there. That's my guidance to you. Don't go on the assumption, I don't know if it will or it won't. Go forward on the assumption it will.
I understand our budget and I understand the fiduciary duty of the board. If I thought there were extra pennies in the operating budget for 2018, I would definitely say, yes, it's going to be open. That isn't what, when we have talked about the YMCA leaving, the gist of this whole conversation has been you have to pay your operating expenses. And in order to do that, it's much like the pool pledge thing we did a few years ago. We got people to over-pledge that, but they did it. It's just a point of, I don't want to make any promises to people either. Like I say, there's people that have lots of good ideas of how to get new members, encourage members to maybe come back that haven't been here, you know, and work with that. I'm saying we have tons of ideas like that. It's just the point of the gym has to be here open for them to come to.
Let's go to Adele.
I hate to repeat myself, but
Let's go to Adele.
Just in the interest of progress and moving forward, let's not really discuss the history of what's failed. Mitch, you already stated that you'd be willing to get with Linda to go over the hard numbers and try to figure out how to make this happen. When can we expect that to happen, that meeting? Time is of the essence, so I'm just asking.
I'm free tomorrow afternoon, all afternoon.
Awesome. So I hope that happens relatively soon so that we can move simultaneously with the commitment letters. And that will get Linda what she needs, that'll get Vanessa what she needs, and that'll get Mitch what he needs.
That's what it sounds like
Once
to
the
me.
three of them have what they need, these guys will have what they need.
I think so.
That's all I had to say about that.
Thanks. Yeah. That's pretty much the way it was looking to me. There's tons of things that can be done. A straw poll can be done right now, but you don't even need real commitment letters. You can just get a straw poll from the tools that Mitch mentioned, the system that Brian has, because basically it's not going to cost anything to do that sort of thing. Carol had your hand up.
The only thing that I think still, if I'm a person who's signing up for this, and obviously it's just a commitment letter, but still I think I would like to know what the board's and the task force's recommendations would be if we fall short. How short would we fall before we would say, done? Or are there any other funding options that would be recommended? That, in other words, would we increase the dues? Would we find some funds out of last year's profits, as Mitch calls? I mean, I think we need to hear that from the task force so that, and because there needs to be a comfort level from those who are committing themselves to know that, hey, if I'm the only one, or if we fall short of the 90%, then is this a waste of my time? Should I still go ahead and just find another membership? That's my only recommendation for the task force, is to maybe come up with some, what's your option in case we fall slightly short?
But once again, that has to come back to the board or to administrate. You know, that's what I'm saying. You're talking about unspent monies. I'm hoping that by doing a pre-enrollment, you'll get
Precisely.
just that, just enough to cover the expenses.
In line with what Carol was just saying, I think it is in the budget that we were going to spend $15,000 for the Y.
And the utilities for the building are 25.
Yeah, to cover their utilities, okay?
But the utilities in the building are 25, so we have the
Right.
15, we would need another 10.
So, well, what I'm saying is you're looking for a number that we're willing to subsidize. We have been willing to subsidize $15,000 in the past. I don't see why we wouldn't do that for ourselves, okay? I'm not saying do it, but if we have to, I think that that's a starting number.
We could do that. We hadn't used any of that. I'd kind of left it out for the pools because I think that's where I think we're going to be spending much more on utilities for the pools than we are the health club. And so we hadn't put that in our budget, but we certainly could. It makes our bottom line look a lot better. But I was, Mitch, I think, split it in some of the documents you gave us earlier.
I did. As a practical matter, unless the board told us otherwise, the building is not getting shut down. So the utilities in this building are going to remain being paid. Therefore, your 25,000, I just added up, your 10-month plan here has 12 months of utilities. So, yeah.
Conversation tomorrow.
Yes.
Trying to be conservative.
I'm here to help. So, the board would, I do not believe is going to say shut down this building. So the utilities are really not a factor.
Certainly not for the
But they're a big,
gym.
but they're a big cost for us. You know, if you take it out, yeah, you can drop it down. But it's just, once again, I used the numbers that Mitch gave us, and I believe that was in a board packet a few meetings ago. And I think that he allocated that. That would be nice. I don't know that they'll drop down that much. I've looked at the GLs for 2017 through October.
No, these are real. What you've got here is real.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So, tomorrow.
Okay, let me re-ask the question that I asked earlier. How soon, and I think Odell was putting the major point down, how soon can we get this stuff worked out? Can we have at least a preliminary operating plan by the next board meeting in 2 weeks?
Oh, easy, you'd have it before that. If Mitch and I sit down, in theory, you massage the numbers until you're happy with them, and then you say, yes or no, this is the number. If all I need is a commitment letter, that's something real simple. If I need an enrollment form or a pre-enrollment form, that should really go by the attorney.
Yeah, exactly. And
But if it's just in a commitment letter,
what I've heard suggested is you're looking for an approximate number to tell people what it is likely to cost, and that apparently can be worked out very, very shortly.
A lot of work, and I think we can do this. It's not a snap your fingers issue, but I think that we can flesh this out.
There are no tooth fairies here, so.
I think that we can do this.
Okay,
I think if Linda and I work together, I think this is doable.
Okay, that part is doable, and then you've already heard, yeah, you can go out and do some sort of polling. You've already heard that maybe you can actually get information directly from the Y, or at least ask them. Whether you get it or not is another issue. You can ask them. So you've got that kind of authorization to move forward. The only thing that you would need from the board then is authorization to actually tell people you're
put it
going
out to the membership.
And that's a different bag. That comes in part of your determination. How many pre-enrollments did we get, or commitment letters, whatever you want to call them, did we get? Can we operate this thing with that number? What is the delta between how many we got and the money that they bring in versus the cost? What is that delta? Then you're going to need to come to the board saying, okay, it's too large, we think, or it's larger than 15, but maybe reasonable. Do you think you can bring that kind of info to us within the next 2 weeks?
No, it's going to be about a month.
Yes, it is going to be a lot of work, and
You know,
we've got a
in
thing
2 weeks,
closing right
you'll
away.
maybe have half of it, because you're going to have to put out notification. That can happen next week. Plus, like Mitch says, e-blast, that sort of thing. But you're going to have to say, here's where you come get this form, here's how you tell, because there are some people that, yes, you can do it online, or an online and me, and some committees and even people signing up is kind of, I almost would rather like to have the little paper in my hand.
Let me ask, do we need to have a complex pre-enrollment form, or is there some simple thing that we can just send out and say, mail it back or email it back? I mean, I'm not sure that
Or drop it off at the office, that, you know, someplace that I know I can collect them.
Yeah.
That I'm gonna get them all, that somebody's not gonna say, hey, there's 3 of us that made the commitment and it's not, you know, that's my concern.
Yeah.
I just need to work that fine line out.
I think that you guys have tons of ability between you and your folks who are not yet members, but who have been providing input. And staff's already, we already know how to implement an eBlast sign-up page, so that's not going to be too terrible. Not easy. They do have other things to do, but we want to try and keep the amenity open if at all possible. So I'm hearing that you guys think you can handle.
A simple form.
Yeah, in the next 2 weeks, and we can get the info and move forward from there, from the board.
Will we also want to have a list of committee or task force members for approval by the board for vetting?
As soon as possible.
With the charter, and that's why Leslie had asked for the charter
that's
before.
That's what I was saying earlier. The charter is less important than making sure that the members are.
Okay, we can, by the next meeting, we can I'll be more than
Bring us
happy to
that,
bring
and
you
then-
their.
And again,
Yep.
the charter is tabled until the next meeting as well, so, you know, that may be a good time to do that stuff.
If you get your list of the members to our staff, our admin, and we can start vetting them.
Okay.
This goes to the D&O issue. They're covered once they're vetted.
Gotcha.
Okay, now.
Comments from member comments.
Well, okay,
Oh,
let me
okay.
ask, though, okay, we've talked about the charter, we've talked about the path forward handout, minutes we don't need to talk about. Is there anything else that you guys want to raise before we turn it over for member comment? Okay.
Electronic copy of this, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so, as we said, it's now open for member comment. To please come up to the microphone, your name and your location, you know, division and lot or street address, whatever works.
And let me know if you're a member of the gym. No.
Sign this form.
My name's Phil Rogers, 30 Winwood, in Gate 1, and I'm one of the new owners that Mitch referred to. To answer your question, I actually signed up for the gym the day before the Y announcement.
Good job.
I just wanted to re-emphasize something that one of the owners said earlier. There must be a lot of people close to my age who are on Medicare, and with this Advantage plan, without any additional cost, they cover the gym membership. And that's one thing I tried to find out from, in my case, it's Silver and Fit that covers the membership to the Y. I don't know what their terms are for having the same arrangement if the gym is run by the homeowners association. And I guess I just want to re-emphasize that that's an obvious marketing opportunity. And if there is a difference between an association like Silver and Fit or Silver Sneakers paying a market rate or paying less than a market rate, then maybe somebody like myself can always contribute in addition to that. So I just thought I'd offer that.
Thank you. I'll just, for informational purposes, note that the Y did not always have Silver Sneakers here. They had to go through a certification process to get it here once they started operating here. They had it in town, but it took some number of weeks. I forget exactly.
It was almost a year.
It was longer than I would have thought reasonable for them to get that. So there may be hoops to jump through. It's not like a switch. Leslie?
Yes, when Sudden Valley was running the gym before, they did apply for Silver Sneakers and Silver Fit. They never were able to get the approval from Silver Sneakers, but I believe that Silver Fit was one that they finally got in, but it took quite a bit of work to do that. That's not to say what's going to happen now. This is just what we found in the past.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Who else?
I was going to say the same thing. History was that we were able to get one of them. It takes a little bit of time, and I think it may be helpful, the fact that our facility has recently been approved by Silver Sneakers, so hopefully we would be able to follow through on that process. But it won't be initial. We'd have to go through the application process.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I want to thank the board for the job tonight. You guys, everybody's right on. I appreciate all the input, and you do an excellent job. And Linda's did a great job tonight. I really appreciate that. Vanessa as well. And Owen, I appreciate that. My name is Rich Herrera. I live in 5 Sparrow Court, and I come tonight wearing 5 different hats. You know, as a property owner, I'm a Silver Sneaker member, I'm part of the task force, and I'm a business owner. And through the meetings, everybody keeps bringing up the janitorial. I didn't say anything for a long time, but I was compelled to speak up because I owned a business janitorial for over 30 years. So I wanted the input, and Linda asked me for a small bid, and it just, in her defense, it just pertained to the shower room. So I didn't know what the arrangement was for the lobby, the rest of it up here, you know, barn. So I gave her rates are based on man hours, hourly rate. Commercially, you're looking at $25 to $35 an hour. I want the lower rate for our benefit. So it can go either way. So if they want more work done or more hours, it's just all based on frequency. You know, how many times, what the services that they want. So I just wanted to share that with you guys. And, you know, Mitch is right on. I would appreciate that. It's a little low at first. If you were doing the whole thing, it would be low. So, appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
Any other homeowner comments? Yes, sir.
George Holton, Eagle Crest, Gate 3, the dark side. We didn't have the benefit of having the white paper, so there's certain things I'd like to ask rather than comment on. What was the staffing levels that was in
your numbers?
It was 4 part-time staff and then 1 part-time manager.
4 people?
Yeah, it's to cover 86 hours of operations, which we currently have.
Does that include any aerobics instructors?
No.
That's a very important part of the facility now.
Right, and we've discussed that in the task force. We have 2 people that have regularly attended our task force meetings, and they would like the opportunity to have those programs in place. Just for the time being, to keep the health club open, we looked at that as more of a long-term, that would be something long-term we'd look at, just as we would with any insurance programs.
Well, as a frequent participant downstairs, I can tell you there's an active group of women that use the aerobic facility and the yoga. They're both very popular, and a lot of ladies, that's the only thing they do. So I think it's an integral part of maintaining the facility.
Right, and then in the task force meeting, we also did discuss indicating on pre-enrollment forms, which tonight we've said they would just be commitment letters, but on those pre-enrollment forms, we did want something to indicate if your insurance currently pays for gym memberships, and that's something we could probably add on there, you know, do these fitness classes, is this something of interest to you? But because we are on a short time frame to keep the health club open, we didn't have time to go into that at this, you know.
As I say, I think it's an integral part of maintaining the facility. The other thing is Silver Sneakers. I believe in a maxim that free is good, and Silver Sneakers allows us to come in here with no cost. Of course, we have it through the Advantage plans that Medicare will offer. But the way Silver Sneakers work, from my understanding, they only pay by the use, the daily use, and there's a maximum of 10 days per month. Now, for a lot of old people, 10 days a month is pretty good. Not for me, I'd like more. But what I see is, even if, how long have they explored the process of maintaining silver sneakers or silver and fit certification? Because I think that's very important.
Right, we did discuss it as Director Roberts indicated a few minutes ago, that before the Y, we didn't get the silver sneakers certification, so I don't know how long that process would take, but it does come up in every single meeting that we have, and we do want to have something again on the pre-enrollment form, just to get an idea of how many silver sneaker members we'd be trying to, keep here in the Valley.
It would be I think an advantage if you could put in any kind of communication, this is when you anticipate having silver sneakers back here. If they certified it once, what is involved in getting it again?
No.
And it shouldn't be, to me, it shouldn't be that difficult, but I think it'd be important to let the association know how long it would take to get it. As I say, right now, it doesn't cost us anything, and when you say $42 a month, it's significant, I think.
Yeah, can I just clarify though, so the Y has that certification, right? But prior to the Y, we never had that certification. So I don't even know if it's something we're going to be able to obtain, but we do want to look at that as part of our process.
Thank you. Are there any further homeowner comments? You, sir, and then Fred.
My name's Jason Lehman. I live at 10 Nighthawk Circle, and until yesterday, I was basically just a very concerned Sudden Valley resident. I was asked by Janine downstairs at the Y to join the task force meeting last night, based on my knowledge and I guess some would call maybe expertise in the business. Until very recently, I've been the fitness director and personal training coordinator at Bellingham Fitness, one of the biggest clubs in town, the biggest club in town, the most members in town. So what I'd like to really stress to both the board as well as I think I conveyed last night to the task force is, time really is of the essence. I think Carol touched on that as well as Odell. These people, as you can see, they're passionate. They're passionate about their exercise. They're passionate about their programs. They're going to find a place to exercise. Every day that club downstairs, and I love that club downstairs. I love to work. I love my Sudden Valley gym. I don't like to work out where I work, mainly because people don't leave me the hell alone. But I don't want to see it close. I want to see it thrive. I think the potential is definitely there. But they will find another place. So I think that time is of the essence, and I mean, even if you could just have maybe a couple membership options. I sat in on the meeting last night and kind of threw a couple ideas out there based on what I've seen as trends in the fitness industry really work and really survive a transition or a takeover. And I put together a couple of real rough talking point outlines here that I've handled before. I've worked in the big clubs, I've worked in the small studios. I'm a physical therapist by trade. I did clinical PT here in Bellingham as well as down in Seattle as both a resident in a hospital as well as private clinical. I didn't like it. It really it burned me out. I've always felt more comfortable in a gym working with people, whether it be in a 30,000 square foot building or a 3 outfitted studio. People have fitness goals and that they're very passionate about and passionate about reaching. But what I see really in any spectrum really is a 3-step process in transition. The ultimate number one thing you want to take advantage of is your retention. And that was actually one of the points that I brought to the committee last night, and I said, shoot for the moon. 90% is very attainable. Now, you're gonna hear from the YMCA that they're not gonna wanna lose 240 members. So they're gonna plan on wanting some retention as well. And I'm actually shocked that the gentleman that brought the outlines and the figures to the meeting last night, I'm shocked they even gave that up. Because these are Whatcom County residents, and they're not gonna be too keen on losing their members as well. So again, you wanna harness, and step two is capture the market. And what I love about this facility out here is it's really kind of a community within the community. And you don't wanna lose that. And you know, the longer and the more time that there is downtime, there's gonna be residual loss, which is unfortunate. So, I mean, I'm happy to, until very recently, I'm what, 10, 11 days now into a very nice severance package, so I'm enjoying a little bit of vacation, well-deserved vacation, father of 3 girls, so. But I am a little bit intrigued on, you know, really helping the transition period and the committee take over and really get this thing going, because we have a good thing out here and we really don't want to lose it. And you'll hear from, I'm sure, I mean, the gentleman that was sitting there earlier, you know, I want to give that guy a job. Enthusiasm for people, you know, that they want to be where they're comfortable, and this is where they're comfortable. So let's keep the task force running. I'm more than willing to sit in on the meetings and help people out, absolutely. I talked with Linda, I talked with Vanessa. This is a much more in-depth transition period, but then at the end, you know, the thing that, what I've heard so far tonight and what we kind of ran our perspective numbers on in the meeting last night, really lacks any growth or expansion, which in the next 10 months or 12 months, whatever it's gonna be, we should hope that there will be some growth and some expansion. Just a couple of ideas that I pitched to the committee last night. I think one of the ladies said in her letter, I see this as an advantage for the Sudden Valley community. You're in a really vital time period where you're taking back your facility. You know, it was outsourced for 4 or 5 years, I think, but it's a good time for the club and for the facilities. Operations, management, it's all speculative, you know. The nice thing about going independent is you can do whatever you want to do. And you can set, I took a good look at the budget, you can set your numbers based on what your budget is to be able to operate and be successful. And I'm more than happy to help with that, so.
Super.
Thank you,
sir.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other homeowner comments? Oh, yeah. Larry.
I'm Robin Anderson, and I live at 19 Twin Flowers Circle. And I just had a question for Carol. You were talking about the dues, and you said something about we got 97%. Are you saying that some people aren't paying their dues?
Actually, this is pretty typical in any homeowners association.
Oh, really?
Anything, anywhere you buy anything, have a service, is you're going to have some individuals who run on hard times, and they just cannot make their payments. We have 36 people, I believe, right now who are on a payment plan, which means they are behind in their dues. But
But they're catching up.
But they're catching up, and they should be. We should be able to catch them up within a year. But there are always people who become out of work, or somebody dies, and we don't get anything from the estate for a year. I mean, there are any number of reasons. But we maintain a constant contact with those people and say, hey, you know, can we expect a check today, or would you come in and sign up for a payment plan? The beauty of it is, in 2014, our collections rate was at 85%. We had a huge backlog of unpaid dues. We are now, this last year, we ended at 97%. That's unheard of, and from what we are hearing, the standard in HOAs is about 91 to 93%.
Okay,
So
I didn't
we're
realize
way
that.
ahead of the game. We are very lucky. All of our neighbors pretty much are paying their dues, so we're not supporting anyone really.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Any other homeowner comments? Fred, you were first, and then we'll go to Summer.
Again, I feel Fred Haslam, 2394, I feel obligated to make a comment, given the recommendation. First of all, I'm willing to pay $50, up to $50 a month. Okay, so.
Right down. Gotcha.
Secondly, I endorse everything that he said. Time is of the essence. I have used the health club for 10 years, average of 3 times a week, even when George is there. So come the 1st of February, I'm looking for some place to go. I can't wait till March. So I'll probably go to Bellingham Fitness. And if in fact we can get something up and running here before the 1st of March, or even at the 1st of March, I'm likely to come back. If it goes much beyond that, I'm probably going to get comfortable in a new place. So I really encourage an expeditious action on all of this. The other thing that I've been thinking about and wondering about is the wisdom of undertaking this effort while simultaneously there's an effort to mount an SGM. Because we're going to have to go out to the same people. Your vision is broader than what we're talking about here tonight, but it might be wise for some strategy discussions between the health club effort and the broader effort and see how that might come together. Thank you.
Thank you. And I believe Summer? Yes.
So one thing, it's a good segue because we've actually taken this very much into consideration and we think that the two fit together very well because there's an ability to focus on the immediate of keeping us going as we then work on the longer term of taking it over from there. I think, you know, if we're able to, if the numbers come together the way that we think that they will, and we move forward with petitioning for an SGM, I think that it frees them to not then be burdened with what happens in a year, what happens, you know, and then it frees us to not worry about, oh my gosh, what happens to all these people that are leaving for the 4 months until we can get this taken care of. So we have absolutely taken that into consideration, and I think that they work really great together. So I guess that's what I was going to start by saying is I absolutely support what you guys are trying to do. I will never use the gym, but I would be willing to be a member simply for supporting it. In all honesty, I'm not going to go to the gym. But I'm not. I sold my elliptical because it collected clothes. But no, and that is, it's true, and it's that important to me, and I do think that as an interim, as we work on a larger scale plan, I would be willing to make that contribution to help preserve that for us for the future. I do have one other comment and then a couple of quick questions that I'm wondering. There was a comment about the YMCA kind of like wanting to take our members and retain our members, and honestly, I don't see that happening. The people that were members of the Y before, yes, they're going to probably still be members of the Y. The people who joined the Y when the Y came here did it out of convenience. And they likely did not start venturing to, you know, Linden or Fern or wherever the locations are. So I really don't think that that's a risk. I was a member of the Y because I wanted to use the pool. I never touched the gym, and I will not join the Y now because I don't have a use for it. So just from that standpoint, I don't think that there should be any fear there. But then I do have a couple of really quick questions. The membership fee that you guys talk about, is that a per person? Is that a per household? Per person. A per person. So then when you talked about the 240 gym memberships, do you know that those are people that were actually using the fitness equipment? I mean, do they track that? Like, so there were 240 that like touched that stuff, right? That I will never touch. And then out of those memberships, are those individual or family? Do you know, is there a breakdown? So they don't have that separated out? Okay. Well, so the good news is maybe they were family and you might get 2 where you thought you had 1. My other quick questions were,
in part of this planning, do you guys anticipate a need for current admin support, managing key cards or managing, you know, whatever? And do we know that the admin has the capacity to provide the support? Like, how much of a strain do we anticipate that this would be on our current admin? And it's not necessarily that you have to answer it, but that's something that I've been thinking about as well, because we're kind of having similar ideas, and I just want to put that out there. From a marketing standpoint, and Linda answered my question, you know, there is not a budget for marketing. I would like to suggest that that's going to be important. The problem with our online polling, and for anybody who doesn't know, I'm the vice chair of the communications committee. So even if we have 1,300 members on our email list, which is less than I believe we have at this point, that's 18% of our community, and my husband and I are both on it, so it's less than 18%. And the same goes with Facebook and everything else. I know that it was mentioned to, you know, tap into Brian's resources, but I also worry about, you know, if we have to do this for several months, if our plan doesn't come to fruition, there's no larger plan, there has to be marketing, because that's going to be a constant battle of keeping the members and making sure that people know about it and whatnot. So just a thought to put out there. And then my only other question was if there had been consideration to, you know, you guys had mentioned gym as the short-term win and then start longer-term planning for the pool. And I'm curious, and I actually do want an answer to this one. What kind of thought has been put behind what happens if and when the pool opens? Because the gym members are absorbing some of the maintenance costs, the janitorial, whatever, which now pool members will be taking. And so would the gym memberships adjust, you know, or is the longer, I don't know, I just kind of wondered if you had gotten to that, or if that was just more later on.
So I don't think, so when we were talking about the pools, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but we were talking about the utilities and maybe some of the the janitorial were just for the health club portion, but we might adjust that later. So those utilities are a small part of that $93,000. So even if we do look at the pools later on, I don't see it moving enough to change the gym membership fee.
Okay, that makes sense. And I think Mitch had spoke to the utilities weren't actually part of the gym budget because the utilities are happening regardless. Was that correct?
The utilities are going to get paid unless we shut the building down.
Okay.
And I don't believe the gym will increase the cost overall of the utilities to this facility. Pool, different issue.
Sure.
So even though you've got the utilities in here, you had looked at the pool, you'd have the utilities in here. So that's a shared expense. It's a fixed cost.
Yeah, no, between those two, that answers my question. The utilities aren't a huge impact on your budget, so then when you add other things, it's not going to make one go up or down or the other. That was it. Thank you.
Thank you, Summer. Any other homeowner comments? Yes, sir. And thank you for your service back there on the soundboard.
Rob Gibbs, 14 Far Summit Place. I also don't know if I'm going to be using the health club. I probably should be using the health club, but what I want to say is I really want to thank people that are spending a lot of hours, a lot of time volunteering, trying to find a solution. You know, it's really easy to just throw up your hands and say, there's nothing we can do, or just walk away. And I know people are working really hard to try to find solutions on this. I'm also really excited that we have an opportunity for Sudden Valley community to get back into this building. And I'll be honest with you guys, when I first came to visit, I was a little surprised when I was told, well, the YMCA is running the pool. YMCA is down here. And I guess I would be more excited if I thought, this is my community. This pool we're behind it. We're able to manage it and keep it going on our own. And so I will do, my wife and I will do whatever we need to do to be able to help that process. Because I'll tell you what, I really like the idea, after the construction's done in the future years, say, you know what, I really like to go for a swim and just be able to come in and here's my Sun Valley Community Association membership or whatever, and come in and just be able to do it because it's my community, it's part of us, I guess, you know. I don't know, that's really how I feel about it. And, again, I just listening to people talking, and I know there's a lot of hours spent and a lot of time and expertise. Thank you for doing it. Please find solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other homeowner comments? Okay, then let's go to new business, and voting is necessary. We have a capital request and some potential expenses that are foreseeable.
I'm just going.
Sir, on the sander, Jacob Close has prepared a request to replace a salt sand spreader. This is the last unit that was purchased under EMB. It's an old model and it failed. Basically, the auger is right next to the electronics. The seal didn't hold. The electronics board rusted, and the replacement board was about $3,900, but the entire unit was only a little bit more. Let's make the smart decision and buy a whole new unit. So we're looking at a standard delivery of 3 to 4 weeks from purchase date. Freight is free. I'd like to expedite the delivery because there is no good time to not have the right salt equipment when you have a sand and ice storm coming. This would complete our inventory. We're requesting $6,445, including tax, expedited delivery, and upfit, and a contingency of $300 for a total of $6,745 allocation from SURF to purchase a new sand salt spreader, and we will throw the old one out.
Okay, I need a motion.
I move that we approve $6,445, including tax, out of SURF. Sorry? Oh, no, 67, sorry, forgot the contingency. I move that we approve $6,746 out of the SURF account to pay for a new salt sand spreader.
Second.
Moved and seconded. David seconded. I have a quick question. I presume that the urge for speed in delivery is one of the reasons why this is not going first to the Finance Committee.
Exactly correct. I talked about this with Carol. I believe I might have had a conversation with you. I also believe that I talked to Director Trower. The decision is we need the equipment. The old one's bad. This is not it's capital equipment, but we need it. And let's not delay. You'll notice also it's a single bid. This is not a triple bid unit. We did evaluations a few years ago on which models to purchase for sand salt spreaders. There's one manufacturer that we have decided to go to. There's not a lot of manufacturers in this arena, and so there's like one player in the field, and that's who we're hiring it from.
Okay, I see Eric and Carol. I don't know who is first.
Well, she made the motion.
I just have a minor change to the motion. I don't think it needs to be an actual amendment, but if you add the 6445 and 300, it really comes to 6745. And so rather than 6746, I would recommend we change that to 6745 as the amount requested.
That's what it says.
Not in the recommendation.
Not in the recommendation, which is what I read.
Oh, I got an extra $1 in there.
Yeah.
Well, all right, there was
I
the
know how
investment.
you're lining your pocket. That's not even a lot yet.
Okay.
Okay.
I apologize for the
No, I
typo.
made the recommendation motion, so I'm just changing it, that's all.
You don't get to do that, and for $1, I don't think we need to worry about it.
Jennifer will appreciate it if we have it done correctly. Sorry.
Okay, all right.
Yes, she will.
I understand that you do not want to be on the receiving end of her displeasure. Okay, so there has been a motion to amend to change 6746 to 6745.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there a need to discuss?
Call the question?
Okay, yeah, let's just go ahead and on this one, because it's money, let's raise hands.
Okay.
All in favor?
Of which motion, the amendment or the
The
motion?
amendment.
Okay, okay.
To just change that $1. Okay, that's unanimous to change that to a 5. Okay, now we're back to the underlying motion. I believe Eric had his hand up.
Asked and answered.
Asked and answered.
Call the question?
Question called. Is there any need for further discussion? All in favor, please indicate. Unanimous. Okay, thank you, sir. Next item is a clearance lot auction expense.
Yes, sir. As Chris Weitzel preempted me on that, I believe we have talked about this at length. There was a very good article, I felt, that prepared by staff in the newspaper from Gil Martinez in accounting, listing 24 lots scattered throughout the entire association. This will be a clearance auction to eliminate us holding any more lots. My thought is I suggest the board every other year we'll a number of these lots, especially the ones that are higher valued, were donated to us. People just said, I want out, and we took them. And I think once a year or once every other year, just auction them off. And so here we are with 24 lots. We're wanting to auction them off. Half the lots have ULIDs, the other half do not. That's why there's two different prices on the sheet. The ones that do not have a ULID, we are charging $250 additional funds, which we should not absorb, to put a ULID on it. So it's an actual buildable lot. And so we would put them up for auction. Highest bid, it would be here on March 10th in the dance bar. As an aside, we would recommend, we are following the county process, so we would recommend that no elected member of any committee nor any employee of the corporation should be able to bid on any of the lots. Other than that, we have a fairly well-defined process. We've spoken with the county, we've spoken with the title company, they will be here, and we're looking at being able to go through the entire list. Each one, when it's sold, the auction will not proceed until the payment is received on that lot. Once the payment's received, they can either deal with the title company later or right then, but then we'll go to the next auction. So we believe that it is possible conservatively to put $45,000 back into density reduction, and we think that's the conservative number, but it could go a lot higher. I'm not sure if I agree with Chris Weitzel, and I'm not sure if I agree on going to MLS. Now the reason for that, since a number of these lots have been taken back before, we call that a rubber band. Someone buys a lot, they do not know Sudden Valley, they purchase the lot, they go to the lot and say, it's gonna be very difficult to build a house on this lot. I don't know that I really wanna do that. I don't wanna pay these dues. And then we get into a tussle back and forth. So we prefer to do business with people in the local area. But we would certainly get a lot more money going into MLS, but we will pay a lot more money to go into MLS. So on that, I reserve further evaluation and discussion which way we want to go. But for right now, we are asking for permission to open up a GL to expend what we perceive to be $6,855. Now, lien release costs, if we do not sell a lot and there's a lien on it, we'll leave the lien on it. We have lots that are in green space permanently that have our own liens on it. There's no reason to spend a dime to take that lien off because it's not going anywhere ever. So why spend $75 to do it? If we don't sell the lot and it goes into green space, we won't spend the money to take the lien off. It's not necessary. Advertising, postcard, printing, and mailing. We are planning on sending a larger scale postcard to every member of the association. So there will not be a claim of, I was not told. Staff overtime and 2 armed security guards. County requires cash or traveler's checks. We are going to set up to take credit cards because that is a lot of cash and that's too attractive. But there will probably be people bringing cash, so we will probably have armed guards. Staff overtime, we will have staff working this on the day before and the day of. We're now set up on the 9th with title companies to have a dry run. And then the estimated credit card fees, it's $3,000. That assumes $100,000 in sales. So if you don't have 100, it's 3%. So whatever it is. Now on the 3% on it's a general rule. We don't accept credit cards. We think that this is a risk-averse, smart business move, not having that kind of cash available to attract that kind of trouble. So I think it's wise for us to absorb the 3% to reduce our risk profile. That said, we're requesting the money, a very small contingency for density reduction, and of course all the sale proceeds go right back into density reduction.
Okay, need a motion.
I move that the Board of Directors approve a density reduction fund allocation not to exceed $7,355 for the expenses related to the clearance lot auction.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, so do we have any questions or need for discussion?
Oh, I have discussion.
Yes, ma'am. And David. So.
Okay, I'm gonna be the bad guy here, the devil's advocate. Long time ago, there was a summary written of the density reduction reserve. And I went back and actually looked at a prior views that I'm looking at from 2011. And in there, they talk about the fact that if there's any lot sold out of the density reduction, it needs member approval. So I don't know where to go from there. I know that there's also something I have to do when we talk about moving the money out of there, that once again, there's, I think it was Leslie did this, did the summary on all of this. And I don't know how accurate it is. I know we could buy all the lots we wanted to buy out of the density reduction fund, but it's always been the thing that if they were purchased, and the argument has come up that many of these lots are lots that have been donated by owners, therefore they don't fit, but some of these are treasurer deed lots.
Actually, none of these are. All the lots that were taken back on density reduction are now in green space.
I looked at the assessor's lot today, a list today, and there are some on there that say they are still treasurer deeds. I don't know whether that's not accurate any longer, but some of them are still treasurer deeds. That's all I'm concerned about.
It needs to be checked.
If somebody could just look into it.
My understanding is that some lots were obtained with the restriction on them, and then those restrictions were placed on other lots. And it may be that the county records were not appropriately updated, so obviously that will have to be checked. But my understanding is that the approval of the density of the lot auction was based on there not being any lot that was obtained as part of density reduction. So that's really, unless you want to request that the board reconsider the entire auction process, that's really over and done with. And you are free to make that request.
I'm just saying, I'm looking back, because you can't look back in the minutes anymore, because they're now 404, is that in this article that was put in by the board, that it says that anytime we sell those lots, that it takes a vote of the membership. I just need I just would like some clarification. It would be real unfortunate to go into this and find out that somebody's gonna come back and say, wait a minute, I thought it was my understanding that if these lots were purchased with density reduction money, that it took a vote of the membership to sell them. That's all.
Leslie?
this article that you're looking at, it obviously was written by somebody. Who was it that made the statement about that?
This was a fact sheet that was presented to the membership in the September 2011 views that gives all sorts of interesting information about moving money from SURF and everything else, because if you remember in 2011, everybody voted to
continue density
to take
reduction.
the 1.5 million out of there
Yeah.
and put into SURF, and to also spend, I believe it was 75,000 for the park, but it was a vote of the membership. And that's the only reason why I'm bringing this up, is because went back and looked in what I could find, and it said it in there. I'm assuming if it was facts, this was something that was published by the board, and I think this question has come up several times when we've talked about our ability to sell our lots, and whether they've been turned over from owners in lieu of deed, or whether they are money that was spent by the association to purchase them in a sale, as we did for years.
If you recall, there were two separate density reduction funds at one time.
That
One
was-
of them was referred to as the members fund, and the other one as the SVCA fund. Now, without any more information,
The other concern I'm having is that basically your comment has more relevance to the following item regarding the density reduction account itself than it does to this particular motion for funding the auction. Now, if you're suggesting that the auction itself as a whole is tainted, or any particular lot is tainted because of this, then you need to give staff that information.
Okay.
And allow staff some opportunity to double check to make sure that the lots are not restricted, because that is and was the board's prior understanding when it established and approved the auction. They are not restricted lots. So there is no vote necessary.
This was our understanding together, Linda, when we worked together on a real estate reduction committee about 4 years ago. You and I assembled this list, and you concurred with me at that time. These can be sold, and this is the same list. So, okay, 4 years ago, you and I worked together on that committee. This is the same list of them. Now you're raising this question. All right, I think that we should go back and we can pull up the individual lots and do a verification on it. We have been selling lots, and we've known we've been selling lots. So, all right, we can go back and check on it. We talked to council and we talked to the auditors. So we'll go down and do a real estate evaluation on the titles.
That's fine. Like I say, I think it's always been my understanding that if we bought them as treasurer's deeds, then you needed permission because it's money that's been spent. If it's somebody as an owner that turns over, which a lot of them are, and there aren't that many treasurer deeds anymore, then it is. I just saying, when I came across this article, I read the whole thing, and in there was this stipulation about being unable to sell lots. And the only reason I'm using it as the gospel is, like I say, you can't get back at minutes anymore, and we're talking back to 2011, but there's the statement in there that you have to have permission. I just don't want to have it come back and bite us.
You didn't answer the other director's question. Whose name is on that article?
Nobody signed it, so I'm assuming it came directly from the board of directors.
No.
It's just, it's a fact sheet, much like we publish ourselves of facts that we have, and it's never put forth, it's just, these are the facts to people. I don't know,
Well, again, that's not relevant to the issue of whether or not to authorize the expenditure of funds for the purpose of this auction that is relevant to which lots are contained in the auction, and that's an entirely different issue.
Okay.
So, to get back to the motion on the table, which is to authorize the $73.55 for expenses related to the auction, let us have further comments as necessary on that.
I guess just my concern was that presentation by Chris. Are we going to find ourselves in one of those political issues with regards to could we have made more money? I mean, I know Mitch, you had mentioned that, but is that something we should be seriously concerned about?
That is beyond the scope of the motion on the table.
Right.
If you want to raise that as an issue, let's raise it separately.
Okay. Right.
Let's stick with the motion on the table.
Okay.
Any other comments?
Call the question.
Question is called. All in favor of approving this motion, please indicate. 1, 2, 3, 4. All opposed? Vanessa is opposed. The motion is approved. Okay. Now, the density reduction resolution. Council has looked at this and has indicated that this is an appropriate resolution. The resolution is for the purpose of reducing the amount in the density reduction account, because the purposes for which that account is currently being used will essentially be dramatically reduced. Those purposes essentially are paying taxes on the properties, some properties that we own. Those properties being sold and a large deposit being made to the account, there will no longer need to be a need for that size of an account. The purpose of the document is because council suggested we needed to have a formal action by the board, and also the purpose is to provide the board with flexibility on ensuring that there is some money kept in there for some length of time until the board decides that it is no longer necessary to have the account. So I don't usually do this, but I will go ahead and move this as a policy of the board.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay, now let's have a discussion. Having moved it, I will say I am somewhat concerned about this new issue of votes necessary to deal with the density reduction fund. I was not on the board in 2011, so while I was a resident, I don't have any direct knowledge at all of the election process, what went into the thinking of why a vote was needed in order to reduce the size of density reduction. I'm somewhat concerned now that this is maybe a lot more complex than even Rich was aware of. I just don't know enough.
Okay.
Leslie?
Again, at a certain point, the monies in density reduction were split into two different funds. One was called the member fund, and the other one was the SVCA fund, and it had to do with how lots were sold and where money was accrued. There was over $2 million between the two accounts. And at one time, the money, one of the funds was voted by the members to be used for something else. Now, I've got to assume that was the members' fund that they voted. So therefore, this money that is left would be the SVCA monies. This is just, you know, my historical recollection. Is it worth looking at? That's up to you.
My uncertainty and the need for resolution and research would lead me to say I would like to table this until the next board meeting to give 2 weeks' time for council and other knowledgeable folks to take a look at the state of the funds to make sure that we're handling them appropriately.
Agreed.
Second that.
Okay, is there a need or?
No, I just want to, in the history that got put forward, and I'm assuming there's going to be board minutes about this, because it talks about where we moved the money all over, and then it says as a final, as part of these, the ultimate results, that in September of 2007, the board, having asked about and receiving advice from legal counsel that previous boards had erroneously moved funds out of density reduction reserve, and they only refer to it as the density reduction reserve, without proper member approval, based on the wording of the 1993 AGM density reduction measure, elected to do the following, and they had to transfer money back. You know, it says they transferred money back into the board density reduction reserve. The $500,000 plus interest earned that had been erroneously transferred out of that fund. And then they asked the members to confirm the 1999 board decision that 1,400 lots was the correct target in November of 2007. This measure was not approved by the member. I'm just saying,
I understand.
I got some
I'm just
concern.
saying, we can't make that decision tonight.
Yep.
All the information that you have, and we're going to need to do more research to gather more information, all of that needs to be given to our council so that our council can make an informed decision and recommendation, legal decision and recommendation for our action. And Leslie?
And to further muddy the waters, attorneys since the time of the density reduction original vote have said, most recently, that this vote was only advisory to the board. It wasn't mandatory. So there's another piece.
That's
of
my understanding. Unless it's a 2/3 majority, it's just advisory. Sir, did you have a comment?
No, I think it's, I think we're going off in a direction. I'd just like to go back on agenda.
Yeah. It's not really off in a direction. We're just, it's telling us why we need to table this. And I think by acclamation, it's tabled for 2 weeks.
You asked staff to generate a minimum cost plan for parks. And so you will find on page 7, a minimum common area work, excluding most parks and playgrounds, 2018 cost estimate. So this is what we're proposing in 6 months.
Something or other. Did we ignore this?
Leslie's asking, did we jump over the 2018 spending
We,
plan?
I'm sorry, we did that earlier with the.
That was what with the closed
the
session vote
salary
was came
issue.
from.
That's
Okay,
correct.
okay. I
Yes,
thought so,
yes, ma'am.
wasn't sure.
I apologize.
Okay.
I realized we had jumped it.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd covered it. I could have put that right out of closed session. It was an error on our part. I apologize.
Okay, so you provided this number?
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
we believe that mowing AM, PM beach and the marina, picking up all garbage cans, there's 47 of them. Road mowing twice seasonally, dry slip maintenance at the marina, supplies, fuel, and equipment repair. We think that your minimum work is $20,630, and optional work, assuming a 6-month period, is the soccer and rec areas, the Lake Louise Trail, gate entrances and mailbox cluster upkeep, total $28,710. We are providing this to the board as you had asked us to. We're also nervous about where the board would want to take this from.
Quite correct. Okay, so, board, you have in front of you the numbers required for doing minimum common area work. And the question that will need to be addressed, and it doesn't probably need to be addressed tonight, but it will need to be addressed. Where is this money going to come from, or are we not going to spend it? It is not funded now. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like staff to suggest a place for this money to come from? Not tonight, but
This, we have funding in UDR. We will go to finance next Wednesday and request canceling the Treehouse Park $42,000 UDR project at this time, but in favor destroying the 21 hazard ranked 8 or higher trees for, I think, $32,000. We are running low on UDR. We're still in the winter time. I think that taking any further money out of UDR at this time for anything other than a safety issue is an unwise, ill-advised move.
perhaps I'm asking for suggestions of where this could come from. I mean, with UDR, you've got the funding from operations from last year. Is there anything else?
Okay, so the funding that we are carrying over in approximately $100,000, we are going to be going into finance next week and suggesting that we commit funds to finish Area Z. We have a hard estimate, and I see that as a very high priority for the association and taking precedent over doing something that the membership said no to. I think that the Area Z contamination issue is a 25-year-old problem. It needs to be put to sleep. The other side of that funding, I would recommend that the stairs right outside that doorway be replaced. So out of that $100,000, I believe those two items plus the $6,800 the board did approve today, those three items will probably completely consume that $100,000. And I would recommend to the board that those projects rank a higher priority and risk mitigation action than doing a park activity. That would only leave then taking money yet again out of facilities and operations, which I would strongly recommend against, or out of UDR. And again, out of UDR, we're taking care of hazard trees right now. We have another $20,000 in budget this year, which we probably need to advance over to the Treehouse Park project. Later in the year, we can get heavy equipment in there. And then the rest of our UDR money, and it's slowing down in there, should be held in reserve for ice storms, snowstorms, windstorms. We are in that season. I think it unwise at this time to suggest, as much as it is important to everyone, that parks take a higher priority than environmental cleanup or hazard mitigation. An ugly story, I assure you.
Okay, I will go with Carol, and then Linda, and then Leslie. Carol.
Okay, I'm looking, and I appreciate you split these because I think there are two different categories of items here. And I appreciate your comments about safety, but I do see picking up garbage from the garbage cans as a safety issue. It's health hazard to not do so, and I will tell you that when garbage cans disappeared around Lake Louise, we still had people dropping their dog bags there, and they would pile up and never got removed. So I think we'd be attracting pests if we don't do it.
We concur, ma'am.
Road mowing is a safety issue for visibility. I think a lot of these things are absolutely necessary. And I'm not suggesting how to fund it right now, but I think we need to not necessarily make it subservient to some of these other things. We need to figure it in concert with the other. And then going, you know, the others, the $8,000 worth, those are mostly for user membership use, our membership use, or for first impressions. I mean, if our gate entrances aren't even mowed, I know we have a lot of volunteers who help out, and that's great, and maybe we can get them again, but I am concerned about I just am concerned about not spending the $28,000.
Linda.
Okay, who was next? Linda?
Review for me again, Mitch. I'm sorry. You said that you're going to cancel the Treehouse Park, 42,000. That's out of UDR, correct?
Yes, I will be recommending that at finance, yes.
And that you're still going to do 32,000, which is in there already too, of the hazard trees, correct?
It's hazard tree removal, 8 or higher ranked hazard trees, 21 of them spread out throughout the association.
But that hasn't been requested yet. It's
No.
like the 32 will replace the 42.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Then you said you're going to finance to commit funds to finish Area Z. I thought we'd done that already. Am I dumber than?
No, why don't you rephrase that question?
No, I'm dumber than dirt.
Pull that back.
No, no, it's just, I thought that, we've been adding to that one capital, I believe, amount that we've been adding
That's
to
correct. So,
constantly.
if you go back and think about the capital account, we went ahead and funded the first 3 activities on it. Identify where the hazards were, talk to the Department of Ecology, identify the depth of the contamination, ask them if they would approve the plan. They've said, this is the plan we will approve, now go do the plan, which will be tilling and adding amendments, turning the soil over a period of several months, and then taking well samples. We feel that it'll be done within 12 months now.
And that's gonna be out of our extra money,
That's correct.
but is that an operational yeah, that's right.
You're not
We went
buying
through this
anything
before,
capital.
didn't we, Leslie?
Yeah.
When we had to farm it before. And the stairs, are they an operational expense or is that a
Heavens, no.
capital?
They're capital.
It's the cost that'll make it. Now, I'm arguing with the county on a permitting issue. So you could use operating money, or you could use capital money. You could use either. Now, SURF is very constrained.
Oh, yeah.
So when I look at the list of projects that we need this year, and I think about how we did the ranking and the prioritization, risk and probability using that XY matrix which you have seen, a failed emergency stairway ranks very high.
I was gonna ask why it hasn't been done yet, but
Well,
I agree with you, it needs to be done. I just was wondering, you had
Does
indicated.
the term shoreline exemption permit make any sense to you? That's exactly what the head of planning said. He said, I will support you working with my staff. All right, I'm working this to get them to agree. That wasn't the intent of that permit, but we are within 150 feet, which we know would then trigger a shoreline exemption permit. And that would be more than the cost of the work.
Okay.
We'll win this argument.
But it will take work to win the argument.
But that's part of where this,
That's
the
what I would
the
recommend.
2017 excess is gonna go, okay.
That's fine. That would be staff's recommendation. Finance is welcome to tell us no.
Well, until you get a bid on it, you don't know either, and if you're telling me that you may need that permit, that's gonna be a ching-ching, bada-bing.
I am gonna win that argument.
Okay?
One way or another.
Okay, David?
Yeah, looking at, AM, PM, all those items on that page 7, those are ones that everybody, I won't say everybody, but a large percentage of the community uses. And I guess I'm sort of thinking about what Carol had mentioned. It feels like if these things aren't done, boy, we're going to get kicked in the guts. I think these are really important items here that you've listed.
David, staff absolutely agrees. And we are cringing in fear of the coming onslaught of complaints and phone calls, which and people just accosting our staff on the street, and we know it will occur.
Well, for a moment on Treehouse Park, some of these not necessarily pocket parks, but all these parks that are distributed throughout the community, they generally serve a limited number of people, whereas these things basically serve like the whole community, is what I'm concerned about with regards to, you know, how much money is spent at Treehouse Park and whether.
I'm confused because that money is not going to be spent at Treehouse
Oh,
Park.
okay, none at all. Is that it?
I'm pulling that money back.
Oh, totally. I was thinking it was just being cut back. I'm sorry.
No, I'm pulling it back, suggesting that we wait for better favorable conditions, including funding.
Okay.
Yeah, better
Okay.
weather, yes, but also funding.
For some reason, I was thinking that was partially pulled back, that we still had some funds
No,
there.
it's being replaced with an amount that will be used for trees.
Okay, the dangerous ones that have to
For
be.
particularly, I won't say particularly bad, but bad danger trees,
Okay.
not a particular park.
So it still feels like someplace in here we have to find $28,000.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't look at us solving the problem tonight.
Right.
But what I want to do is to present some options, and probably take them to the Finance Committee for review. Now, one of the things that has occurred to me, we were talking before about where the profit from last year took place, $100,000 in operations, okay. That's because, first of all, the number of collections that we projected for the budget, we exceeded that by quite a bit. Now, what was the number that we projected for the 2018 budget? 90?
It's at 93%, and if we
93.
continue at
But-
97, we
but if
should be
come
able
to
to collect
97,
an additional.
we'll have some money there.
Yeah, Not as
in-
much, but.
In the same way, we had a lot of construction last year. Now, we,
38,000.
yeah, and so we got money from construction. Is that being used somewhere else, or is that something that's?
Overall, I believe that we did 134,000, I think the books when we closed grossly, possibly 134,000 better than budget, all right, in 17.
Right.
So I don't want to try to spend money we don't have. We think that we have about $100,000 over and above, all right?
When does the spending start?
When hasn't started?
It started.
Exactly. It doesn't start until later in the year.
Oh,
So
yeah.
why can't we look at some of this, because we will, accrue it by that time?
We will accrue some, but
Okay.
I manage your association on a conservative basis without an expectation of having extra, so I manage it on cash.
I understand that, and that's what I'm saying. If this spending doesn't start until later in the year, there will be an opportunity then to accrue this amount, potentially.
It is very probable.
Okay.
Highly probable that we will have the money in possession at midsummer.
If there is any profit, quote unquote, to be made this year for 2018, it will occur, you will have it in hand approximately midsummer.
I think that's a safe bet. During orientation yesterday, I shared with you that we have every expectation we're going to have another year of the same type of construction. We're going to have probably the same sales. Summer's still here? No. So it's always good to look. It's always good to look at an expert. I believe that sales are still going to be strong. All right. We could go ahead and transfer some money out of the capital reserve account and say, do these stairs. And instead of use the operating money for the stairs, use that operating money to do the parks.
Okay.
All right, there's another
So
opportunity.
there's options.
There is,
Okay.
and would it not require defunding something else that had been scheduled in SURF?
Well, you keep attacking the capital reserve holding account. You're not going to have the money if we don't pass a roads measure for a bridge replacement in gate 13.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's going to scare everybody. But we won't have that money. That's going to be a very tight fit. So, you know, we're speculating now.
Yeah, we are. Carol, and then Linda, and then let's try and
wrap it up.
and let the finance committee deal
Well,
with it.
what I was gonna say is, there's no way we're gonna make a decision on this tonight. My suggestion is that we bring this to the finance committee in March with an update as to where we stand. and-
March?
And March.
Okay.
I don't think we need to deal with this before March,
Okay, all right.
because it'll be June, May or June, before we're gonna have to start. But I want to give time for staff to be able to plan for the staff to do it.
We will have to hire.
Yes, exactly,
So
and that's my
March is
point. So that
correct.
gives you 60 days.
Because we'll be looking for temp staff in the June
Or maybe
time
that'll
period.
give you more like 4 to 6 weeks, but I just don't think we're ready to deal with this. I appreciate the heads up on it. The other thing I think is, for budgeting purposes, my recommendation is that these things should be part of our regular budget. I don't think we can make these as a, oh, well, if we have the money. I think we need to add these in, so I'm gonna recommend to Jennifer that we include these as upcoming as part of our budgeting next year. I don't know what else we have to leave out, but I think they're that critical. We
Certainly,
can't
some
afford to leave them
some
behind.
of these are that critical.
Yeah.
I don't know that everyone is.
Maybe
but
not all of them, but there are certainly, most of them are.
Certainly some of them.
That's my recommendation.
Okay, Linda.
I know nobody's looked at 2018 fees yet, and one of the things that I've looked at that we've been doing rather well in is our turnover and our transfer fee. We haven't raised that in OMG, I don't know how long. And I think the 125.
Oh, the 125.
The one, I don't think has been changed in, wow, I don't know when the last time was. And I think that you're looking at most other places, and maybe I'm wrong, we're looking at they're charging $200-300 for that same transfer fee that covers the cost of things. And I'm saying, even if you figure, I think Jennifer said we figure 200, and I think we've had over 300 this year, that you're looking at, there could be a considerable amount of money there that could be earned, but it's to look at the fees. But it's certainly a fee that hasn't been changed in for forever, and I think that it's possible to modify it to get us a chunk of change.
Okay, so with that, let's let Finance Committee do what Finance Committee does. And move to Communications Committee update. I think that's the next one.
The Communication Committee this year, as we've all heard, has grown in committee member count to I believe it's 14 now. And one of the great things that allows us to do is break into subcommittees and attack specific goals of the overall committee in much smaller groups that can deal with it without the wieldiness of a very large group. This last Wednesday, we established 4 subcommittees. One of them is the audio and video subcommittee, which I am going to chair, and we have 2 of the committee members back there in the back running the sound and video for us tonight. And so thank you, Rob and Hannah. We also established a tech and web subcommittee, which Summer is running, and they're going to be dealing with recommendations and working with staff to help with the technology, the website, the e-blasts, the Facebook, all of those technical things that we deal with in communications. We established an events subcommittee, which John Lucarelli is going to be running, and they're going to be setting up and coordinating events for Sudden Valley. And the 4th subcommittee we established with David Narcico running is the Welcome Neighbor subcommittee. And every one of these 4 subcommittees in the past week have gotten very active and have already been accomplishing things. So that's, I really think that it's a fantastic committee and it's exciting to be a part of. What I'd like to do is ask permission, though, for the chairs of each of those subcommittees be allowed to interface directly with individual staff members who would be there to work with them. For example, the web and tech would likely have to interface with someone that is on staff that sends out the e-blasts or puts something on the website. And so that's something that, instead of going through the committee going to the board asking you to ask the general manager.
Let's do it all at once.
Yes.
What do you say, sir, since you are managing staff?
I've asked Eric to please follow the newest procedure and simply say, go to the board, ask for permission, and we'll assign a staff person to his contacts.
And so that's what I'm asking for now.
Okay, so what the answer that I'm getting, maybe I didn't word the question properly, was, do you have a problem with his request? And obviously you don't.
No, I don't. I attended the communication meeting, sir, and as he was generating, I just recommended, please go to the board president for the policy, ask for permission, and then we'll establish that link, and it's a done deal.
Okay, so
Nice, smooth, easy peasy.
does the board have any problem with me directing staff and to work directly with the subcommittee chairs for the communications committee?
Thank you. The next item that I had was that this last month we decided to try an experiment of mailing the views to all residents of Sudden Valley, not just members, but renters also. And so we went so far as to write an article on the front page of the Views announcing welcome to the new way. And unfortunately, there was a hiccup at the Tribune. And so they promised that, I believe, Brent, they've promised that this is resolved for, okay.
I have a to-do list that I go through with you tomorrow.
Okay, great. Thank you. So just letting people know that, yeah, next month we'll try again. And I would like to, at this time, ask for the board's approval of 2 additional committee members to the Communication Committee, Jojean Koss and Tara DeVoe.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any need to discuss? Why don't we just hold that is approved by acclamation? Okay. Thank you, sir, and congratulations, really congratulations. It's just especially excited about the new member greetings coming back. That was always a good thing, in my opinion, and it was sad that we had to stop doing it. Okay, Nominations and Elections Committee update.
I find that we have finally approved and had vetted our final member, Cameron Stewart. We're now 5. We're going to begin meeting in February. I envy Director Trower for having such a large committee, and I may think if we decide to do bylaw changes, it might be nice to have a couple more people on N&E, because it's really a small committee. And I find that as you do more work, and we have our elections, and we have 2 meetings a year for the last couple of years, it would be nice to have other people, but it's, you know, the bylaws really limit us, but we're full and we're going to begin work in February.
Question? The 3 members that were elected 2 years ago, yourself
No,
and 2
3
others,
years ago.
have they been approved for continuing?
Yes.
Okay.
And soon Nueda, I brought to the board a while ago.
Yes.
And then now finally Cameron. It's kind of been a long trek because I took some time off, and then the certification was delayed and getting that done, and because of the weather and stuff in November earlier, but other than that.
So you're moving that we approve Cameron Stewart?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just, he's just been
Let's have a quick
appointed.
second.
Second.
Okay. Do we need to discuss? All right, then by acclamation, so approved. Okay, now, rather late, but not outrageously. Property owner comments and board response. Is there any further property owner comment necessary? Seeing none.
You don't want everything, but as always, I don't think.
Yes, ma'am. Because you're on camera, and we're all on camera.
Thank you, as always, for your service and for all the hard work you do, every one of you. And I appreciate everything that you do. That's all.
For that, I'm always happy to have a comment.
See, now that was
Is there any further homeowner comment? Okay, I'm open for a motion.
Move to adjourn at 10:10.
Second.
Moved and seconded, okay, I guess by acclamation, 10:10.
10:10.